The race for finals continues to tighten, and with a difficult final stretch ahead, Port Adelaide will be fully aware of the opportunity in front of them tonight. An undermanned Richmond missing 15 first-choice players. The Tigers arriving at Adelaide Oval, hopeful of repeating their underdog performance from a month ago against the Crows, but they'll need to do so with their youngest side of the campaign. Port, meanwhile, they've got numerous forced changes, but some big inclusions to balance it out. Radamolea, Rioli and Georgiades return in the absence of Marshall, Farrell and Finlayson. Great to have your company for Saturday night footy on ABC Sport, wherever you're listening on ABC Radio, Sport Digital or the ABC Listen app. Aaron Bryan's calling the action. We're about 10 minutes away from bounce down, and alongside me tonight is Neil Cross. Good evening, Crossy.
Good evening, Aaron. You just missed out that one thing about the Tigers too. You know I'm going to say they're wooden spoon favourites at the moment. At bottom of the ladder, who would have thought? They've really fallen into a hole at the moment. But who knows what Port Adelaide's going to turn up with tonight.
We'll touch on it across the other night, but the Tigers winning one of their last 13. But they haven't really drawn the heat of West Coast of years prior. They haven't been rolled over in as many games. They've had one 60-point loss, one 90-point loss and one 100-point loss. Other than that, they've been fairly competitive, including the matchup against the Giants last week where they lost by 24 points, but at numerous stages got close enough to possibly make it a game, and hopefully they'll do that tonight and it won't be too one-sided, albeit the fans in teal tonight would certainly love for a big percentage boost for Port Adelaide. We've got a star-studded expert roster here in the ABC Sport Box. Firstly, it's great to welcome back All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco. Good to see you, Josh.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. And again, a terrific night for footy. You wind the clock back 24 hours and the weather conditions were absolutely horrendous. But I'm looking at the flags up the northern end on top of the scoreboard. It looks absolutely perfect out there, albeit we did get a light shower about 10 minutes ago, but currently it looks absolutely magnificent for footy, and fingers crossed from a game perspective we get a quality contest. Speaking of All-Australian midfielders, we've got a debutante in the box. She is an All-Australian midfielder and a premiership player. It's great to welcome Kirsty Lamb to the ABC Sport team. Hey Kirsty.
Thanks Aaron, thanks for having me. As sort of Josh alluded to, it's pretty good conditions out there, and obviously both sides are coming off losses last week, so hopefully it'll be a good contest, and we'll see what the boys produce tonight.
No late changes for either side. So Quinton Narkle, unfortunately, in his 50th game is the sub for the Power, although I'm sure he'll be a spark later in the contest. And Tyler Sonsi is the sub for the Tigers. He had 3 touches last week before he was substituted, and now starts with the vest on tonight under the Saturday night lights here at the Adelaide Oval. The text line, if you want to get in touch, 0437 774 774 across the night. Might start on the Power, Kirsty. The inconsistent form that has left a lot of people locally and media pundits around the country a bit concerned about the confidence in what they could possibly do come September, if they can get there at all. What do they need to do tonight to instill a bit of belief?
Yeah, it's obviously been a tricky year in the sense of a lot of changes. There seems to be changes sort of every week. Obviously a little bit inconsistent at times with performances. So I think tonight, like particularly from watching over the last few weeks, what I've seen a massive change from them is actually leading up at the kicker, had a tendency to do long bombs inside forward 50 that just don't seem to score from. So I'd love to see them lead up at the kicker tonight, get the forwards on the move and put a score on the scoreboard. But also the midfield of late has probably just hasn't quite been performing to the talent in there with, Ollie Wines, Horn Francis, Butters, Rosie. They really should dominate the midfield tonight, and I have no doubt that the midfield group will want to show that. Absolutely.
Jesse, I think also too, when you look at Port Adelaide, and we saw them a couple of weeks ago against the Western Bulldogs, and the Western Bulldogs, albeit, were really poor during that game in terms of the way they defended the ground, their intent and, I guess, mindset and intensity around the footy, and allowed Port Adelaide to dictate terms. And look, I don't want the Richmond listeners to switch off now, but if Richmond can't bring intent around the footy and they can't slow Port Adelaide down and defend their uncontested game, they will be dead in the water. Because once Port Adelaide get their tails up, particularly at home, they're very, very difficult to stop. So from a Richmond's perspective, guard the corridor. Don't let Port Adelaide play the brand of footy that they want to play. And as I said, defensively, they've got to be really tuned into the game, because if they allow their uncontested game to get going, Port Adelaide, particularly in the back half, good luck. Hold on to your seats, Richmond supporters, because it could get ugly.
Well, surprisingly, as I mentioned before, against the Giants last week, Richmond actually won the inside 50 count, and they won clearances, considering that their midfield is severely undermanned. No Jack Graham out there tonight either, no Tim Taranto, so it's an even bigger challenge against Rosie Butters, Horn Francis. But they can match it a little bit with some of these better teams. It's just that they can't do it consistently for 4 quarters.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, sometimes when you've got a young midfield, you've actually got nothing to lose. And when you come up against a pretty stacked midfield that Port Adelaide have, it's sort of no hold bars. You just go for it. Obviously, as you sort of already alluded to, if you're not prepared to show up at the contest, Port will run away with it. So I'd love to see some of Richmond's younger players get under the noses a little bit of the Port guys, and we've seen that happen over previous weeks, and it worked. So there's really nothing to lose for Richmond tonight, given their ladder position. They've got a young midfield, so I'd love to see them come out and have a real crack tonight.
Speaking of those tempers, so Zach Butters over $30,000 in fines over the last few years, and then Jason Horn Francis last week, so another 4 frees against. A lot of them were costly against the Suns, and he's played 56 games, and in 9 of them he's had 4 or more frees against. So he is a player that can be riled up fairly easily. Yeah,
look, I reckon it's one of those fine lines. You don't want to take that aggressive sort of nature, mentality and personality trait that he does display, as Zach Butters does as well. You don't want to take that out of the game, but we can't, from a Port Adelaide perspective, have those 2 guys giving away free kicks. And we saw it last week. Horn Francis just lost his cool a little bit. So it will be interesting to see if Richmond actually go to them and try to get under their skin, as you said. But having said that, as I said, it's one of those really fine lines in this game. These days, I guess, as opposed to previously, there's cameras on you from every different angle. There's 4 umpires out there watching what's going on, so you can't get away with anything. So it's just a matter of Horn Francis in particular, just tempering that aggression so that he doesn't cross that line and hurt Port Adelaide.
Thoughts of Josh Franco and Kirsty Lamb, your experts tonight on ABC Sport for Saturday night footy. Aaron Bryans and Neil Cross calling the action as round 19 continues with Port Adelaide hosting Richmond. Earlier today, the Giants defeated the Suns by 39 points, so the Gold Coast road record 0-9 when they're the away team, and that also includes technically a home game here as part of Gather Round in Adelaide, but hasn't been a great campaign for them. A bit of Jekyll and Hyde form continuing. St Kilda knocked off West Coast quite comfortably by 72 points, and Hawthorn has just defeated Collingwood by 66 in a wet and haily condition at the MCG, and continues Hawthorn's incredible run. So I reckon they've won 7 of the last 8 now, and well and truly in the hunt for finals. For our South Australian listeners, you'll know all about the Super Netball. That's heading into the final series this weekend, the semi-finals underway. And the Adelaide Thunderbirds, the minor premiers this season, have absolutely demolished the Melbourne Vixens at Adelaide Arena. So they've won by 25 goals, 68-43, locking their way straight to the grand final. It was already going to be in Adelaide anyway because the state had paid for it, but the minor premiers now a strong chance to go back-to-back. They'll get the week off and be able to host the grand final on August the 3rd. So a comfortable victory over the Vixens. And tomorrow we will see the elimination semi-final between the West Coast Fever and the Sunshine Coast Lightning. But congratulations to the Adelaide Thunderbirds girls, 68-43 winners over the Melbourne Vixens. The text line, as I mentioned, 0437 774 774 if you'd like to get in touch across the night. The outs for Port Adelaide, so they look fairly significant, as I mentioned in the opener. They are replaced with some big names of their own, but Jeremy Finlayson out for the season with a lacerated spleen. Kirsty, that the forward line has really struggled to function at all this season. It's arguably been their weakest point. Charlie Dixon obviously has been in and out with injury, but just failing to find the best that we've seen of him over the past few years. And now you lose Finlayson as well. Todd Marshall's not out there. He hopefully will be more of a short term, but how do you see it structuring up tonight?
Yeah, I think you obviously a little bit shorter than probably what they have played traditionally. But I think obviously with Ollie Lord down there, it does provide him a little bit of height. So I think you'll see Charlie, just with the season that he's had, I think you're probably better off playing him out of the goal square. He's probably not a Finlayson type that can get up the ground and push back. So I think you're better off having him sit in the goal square. And if you do need to go long and deep, then you know you're going to have a contest at all times with him. But I think what I'd love to see from Port is that their smalls get involved. A lot of the times we see midfielders hit the scoreboard and not necessarily a lot of the smalls. So I think it's an important night for those guys to really stamp their mark on a game, which they can do. Particularly if they're going to go long and deep to Charlie, they need some forwards front and centre and getting the crumbs.
Absolutely agree with you. And I think the big inclusion for Port Adelaide is Rioli. And again, I mentioned at the start that just a few moments ago there was a sprinkle of rain, so going in a little bit smaller tonight probably isn't such a bad thing, particularly if the rain does come. And you've got a guy like Rioli up there who's just a master at getting that front and centre, particularly in these conditions. So he's a big inclusion for Port Adelaide. I guess the other question it begs is who's going to do the second ruck work? Because traditionally it's been a Finlayson. I know they don't like to put Dixon in there and shield him from the combative nature of playing in the ruck, so it'll be interesting to see who they play in the ruck as their backup when Sweet comes off for a spell. So what I would say, though, from Dixon's perspective, it's a huge night for him. I just reckon there's a big dark cloud hanging over Charlie Dixon at the moment in terms of where he sits in the grand scheme of things, and I guess the short to medium term. Hasn't been playing all that well, hasn't really been impacting games. I know he's been a warrior and been a great player, but he's looking old.
150th game for the club.
There you go.
So if he needs a little bit of inspiration as he goes forward, 150th game in Port colours.
Yeah. Fun little journey for him. So 65 games with the Suns, and then traded for what was pick 10. And ultimately, Callum Archie was taken with the pick that Gold Coast used there. It was a little bit earlier after a bit of shuffling, but Dixon for Archie, and Port Adelaide would feel like they were winners considering the contributions he's had across the last couple of campaigns. But certainly at the back end of his career at 33, let's see what he has to offer tonight under the Saturday night lights. Port Adelaide and Richmond to continue round 19. There is another game on as well over in Melbourne. Down at Cardinia Park, Geelong hosting the Western Bulldogs, so we'll keep you up to date with the scores there across the night on ABC Sport. Aaron Bryans and Neil Cross with you alongside Premiership Bulldog Kirsty Lamb and All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco. The fifth member of our commentary team is down on the boundary, braving what might be some wet weather across the night. Good evening to Josh Money.
Good evening, Aaron. So far, so good. Toby Nankervis, the Richmond captain, has won the coin toss, and the Tigers will kick to the southern end of the ground. You mentioned those conditions. There's been a couple of wet and wild weather conditions in Adelaide for the past couple of days. Not too bad at the moment. The ground is almost glowing with the moisture, though, so it's going to be wet and slippery. Crucial to see which side adjusts earliest to those conditions. But reasonable crowd considering, and they're going to sing us all the way to the first bounce.
Port Adelaide and Richmond to continue round 19 on ABC Sport. Great to have your company around the country and the globe. Here's Neil Cross to get us started.
Umpire thumps the ball down, and Nankervis takes the body of Sweet and then knocks it forward. Wines picked it up, slipped a hand pass to Horn Francis, then across to Sweet, and then finally coming off half-back, Houston goes wide with a kick onto this broadcast side of the ground. Experience of Boak, picked it up, handballed inside to Houston, went to kick the ball and stopped his motion, lost it on the ground, and now a high tackle by Houston, and it'll be a kick going to Banks.
Just a little bit reckless then from Houston. Just had to show a little bit more composure in that tackle.
Behind centre wing on the broadcast side, Banks sends Richmond up to right half forward. Launching was Kajitsky, outnumbered. Got hands to it, but tapped it down to Rosie. A couple of fumbles, and Prestia rips it away. Arches the back from 40 and slots the first for the Tigers. Oh, he capitalises on a rare mistake from the power skipper. And Richmond are on the board first. One straight six. Port Adelaide yet to score in the opening minutes. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport.
Well, we heard Josh Money just before the bounce talk about the ground glistening with the moisture on the surface, and as you said, Aaron, you don't often see Connor Rosie mishandle the footy like he did on that occasion. He took 2 or 3 grabs at it, couldn't take clean possession, and a terrific start from Richmond to get the first major.
Perfect start. Gee, that ball looked like it floated off the foot, but just finished inside the left post there. So Richmond, who this season have conceded 100 points plus 7 times, 99 they've done twice, and 97. So they do concede big scores, but they've started well in this match. Nankervis again with a tap down, sends it forward. Rosie this time handled it well, and off the back of the square again, turned over with a kick by Houston. Ralph Smith came in and intercepted. He's at left half forward for the Tigers. Into the pocket he goes, Bolton over the top. Couldn't bring it down, and it'll be a throw in. Bergman wanted to claim the mark, but his second touch was over the line. 10 metres around in the left forward pocket for the Tigers.
It's just another uncharacteristic mistake from Dan Houston, wasn't it? Just that kick. He's normally superb by foot. Just turned it over.
Toss back in, Tigers by 6. Sweet taps it down, but Nankervis does the crumbing. Just got boot to ball a couple of metres. Shoveled handball out by Campbell, back to Ralph Smith. Little 1-2 with Hopper. They exit the attacking 50, the Tigers, and A tackle laid on Thompson Dow to hold things up over the boundary line.
You see Ralph Smith just sitting off the back of the stoppage there. He's playing his winger role to perfection there, just giving an outlet to Richmond when needed.
Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Out of the stoppage, Wines hacks it out of there, up the outer wing, and off hands it'll roll over the paint in front of the Bashir stand. Richmond by 6. 3 minutes in here at the Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide yet to score.
Not a huge crowd in tonight either, on a pretty cool night in Adelaide. Ball comes off the ruck contest. Wines picked it up, hand pass forward into the path of Horne-Francis. He went forward to Mead. Inside over the head was well done. Off to Rosie. Forced a kick across the body. Sent it up almost Georgiades. Couldn't pull it in. Tigers will come away. No, they won't. Mistake. It's ended up with Dixon. He threw it surely. Umpire said no. Play on. He was caught in a tackle. Tapped it out. Ball still in dispute. Houston with a hand pass over the head in hope. Dixon picks it up. Hand passes it wildly as well. And finally the Tigers will clear their area. And the kick came away and was intercepted after Short kicked it out. Alia's got it.
Looks to the attacking edge of the square to Wines. The Brownlow medalist hungry to get involved. He'll spear it inside 50 for the power. Excellent launch to cut it off though.
Just an interesting stat as well. At the moment, Port Adelaide have kicked the ball 5 times. They've had 12 handballs, just overusing it, particularly in these conditions. Just get it going forward, get some field position.
James Trezise for the Tigers with the intercept. Uses it with Hopper. Now Prestia out to the broadcast wing. Mansell down the line. Big hit. Samson Ryan was waiting for the ball drop and Radonolea crunched him and knocks the ball over the boundary line. Tigers by 6. Early stages at the Adelaide Oval.
Well, welcome back. Radonolea, wasn't a superb contest there. Just had to get some body on his direct opponent, did, and force the boundary throw in.
I think Samson felt like Samson at that stage.
He would have.
So in comes the ball for the throw in. And Curvis takes front position, knocks it forward. Alia and Mansell. Alia picks it up, slipped a hand pass to Boak. Wide he goes for Wines, got some time, kicks it down the line on this broadcast side. Rioli going for it, but punched away from him by Rioli. So the two Riolis playing against each other. And so we'll get a throw in again. Comes back in. And Curvis having his way at the moment, but he taps it down towards Boak, but a foot on it there and forward for Richmond and just over the line before the hand pass comes out from Campbell. So we get a throw in at right half forward.
Richmond are generating a spare in defence at the moment, so Port Adelaide got an extra number at the stoppage which they're hoping to utilise, but they need to be careful when bringing it forward because Richmond's got that spare sitting back.
Analysis there from Premiership Bulldog Kirsty Lamb. Out of the boundary throw in Rosie with a quick kick up the broadcast wing. A little low for Dixon and beaten to it by Noah Bolter, who's happy to knock it over the boundary line. Tigers by 6. We're now 5 minutes into the opening term. Over at Cardinia Park, the Bulldogs strike first against the Cats, but they're only up by a point. You can hear it through the ABC Listen app. Just hit the AFL button as it's tossed back in. Nankervis wins it down, only found Drew for the power. Caught in a couple of tackles. We'll try again.
At the moment as well, Ollie Wines, not at this stoppage, that previous boundary throw-in was the +1 at the boundary throw-in.
Sweet down to Wines, overhead handball to Butters. Lost his footing, picked up by Banks, who's just smacks it around the body. Little snap up towards centre wing, off hands, it spills in the lap of Boak. He hacks it out of there, a jam kick straight towards Drew. Knocked it to Butters. It's just panic kicking forward for Port Adelaide, but it may work. Sits up for Dixon, couldn't control it. Misread the ball drop and knocked away from him and over the boundary line. Left half forward for the power, still yet to score. Inside 50 count, 3-2 Richmond's way, and they're up by 6.
Crowd a little unsure just what's happening at the moment as the sides settle into the contest. So it'll be Nankervis again. And again, he's just able to muscle past Sweet, who came back this time, put it into the path of Drew, hacked it off the left foot, forward, luckily found Rosie on the turn, slipped it inside the post for a goal. Connor Rosie, all class, levels up the scores, 1 goal apiece. And we've gone through 7 minutes of the opening quarter. On the boundary is Josh Manning.
Much cleaner from Connor Rosie then, but genuinely the ball looks like they're playing with a bar of soap at the moment. Players slipping left, right and centre. It was interesting watching Port's captain's run during the week. It was really wet as well, and they basically played a game of soccer full length of the ground where they could only soccer the ball in preparation for conditions just like this.
Well, it's also interesting, Kirsty, you talked about Richmond generating their +1 because Port Adelaide are bringing one of their forwards up at the stoppage, which at the moment I think it's Jackson Mead. What that's allowing is a +1, an extra number, which has been Ollie Wines. And at the moment, the clearance count is 7-1 in favour of Port Adelaide. So Richmond and the coaching staff and Adam Uze will have to scratch their heads and think about whether they bring their defender up to equalise.
Scores level, Saturday night footy on ABC Sports. Sweet wins it down for the Power, towed out of there by Wines. Straight towards Banks for Richmond. Runs through the broadcast wing logo and skies it into the 50 for the Tigers. Right forward pocket, Aaliyah floats over. Got a fist down to ground. Collision of bodies. Bergman wins out. Gives it off towards Zirk Thatcher. He scrambles it out of there, bouncing towards Evans, now Wines. Beautiful handball to release Boak, and back to Evans, flirting with the boundary line. He heads up to left half forward. Dixon in a one-on-one. Bolter went to ground. Dixon kept his feet, but can't pick up the footy. Flung out by Broad, but cut off by Georgiadis. Mead now snaps it towards the 50. Campbell's floated back for Richmond to cut it off. One straight 6 apiece. 8.5 into the opening term over at Kardinia Park. The Dogs by 7 over the Cats.
Campbell and Broad combined. Now they've sent it out for a Trezise. He goes out to the eastern wing. Ball off hands. Well done by Richmond, able to go forward again. Kick wasn't really to the advantage of their forwards though. And Zirk Thatcher intercepting for Port Adelaide immediately, trying to swap sides with the attack to Boak.
Zirk Thatcher's found some form, hasn't he?
Boak goes into the short mode, into Georgiades, then Bergman, and then Bergman got the hand pass from Georgiades, or rather didn't get the hand pass Georgiades. He fumbled it and then kicked it off the ground down to half forward. Richmond in control again. It came to Broad from Nankervis. Bergman should intercept the ball. He does on the bounce towards the boundary. Bolton pushed him over, surely in the back, yes. Right near the interchange gates. And so Bolton, as soon as the whistle went, signalled to the umpire, yeah, you got me. So Bergman takes the free kick.
He wheels around and sends it up towards the 50. Dixon came late to the contest, did enough to bring it to ground. Caleb Smith in his second game there for the Tigers. Rush kick back up the broadcast wing. Nearly landed in the lap of Kajitsky. Bounced off him, attempting the chest mark. Works out in the end as it ricochets to Campbell. Now Hopper. Down the line he goes to half forward. Fumbled by Steely Green. Did well anyway. On hands and knees. Got a handball towards Bolton. The fend off. Now off towards McIntosh. They just keep flowing forward. Brown thrusts it to an empty goal square and gathered by Kajitsky for the goal. Richmond just kept working and working it forward. And they're back in front. 2 straight 12 to Port Adelaide's 1 straight 6. And we've travelled 10 minutes into the opening term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Your experts, All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco and Premiership Bulldog Kirsty Lamb.
Well, they did keep working the ball, as Aaron said, but it took some class from Shai Bolton just to dodge his way through a little bit of traffic and handball that ball. I'm not sure who it was to. Was it McIntosh? Yes, it was through McIntosh to his advantage and just set up the chain of handballs for the ultimate goal for Richmond. Shai Bolton take a bow. That was outstanding. And I guess that's why he's one of the premier players of the competition.
Yeah, I think in conditions like these, as we spoke about, it's a little bit dewy out there, and sometimes you just got to surge the ball forward, and sometimes it pays off for you.
McIntosh starting at full forward. Just an unusual place for him. Out of the middle, it'll be Rosie who takes the advantage. It was going to be a free kick to Port. Sends it long, top of the goal square. Socket off the ground, just to the wrong side of the post by Willie Rioli for the minus score. Port Adelaide trails by 5 points. Gone through 11 minutes on ABC Sport.
Crossy, you talk about class. Willie Rioli on that occasion, just a bee's whisker away from a miraculous goal off the ground.
Jaden Short brings it back in with a looping ball up to the broadcast wing. Players converge and knocked away from Ryan. Falling at the footy, the bootlaces of Boak as he's wrapped up in a tackle. Very safe from Banks. Slow leaning back as he escorts him to the turf. And here, controversy reigning around the tackle this week. Tossed up, Dixon wins it down. Richmond get the clearance. Campbell again. A wobbler this time high off a step up towards half forward. Radaglia waiting underneath it. Couldn't get a disposal. Brown fumbles as well. Ripped away was Baker. Picked up by Prestia. Smacks it up towards the 50. Mansell tried to paddle it to his advantage. Aaliyah knew where it was going. Gathers and is happy to walk it over. 30 out from goal for Richmond. Right forward pocket, which is the right-hand side of your radio dial at the Riverbank stand end. Tigers by 5. Over at Kardinia, it's the Bulldogs by 7.
Just sensing Port Adelaide at the moment, Kirsty, just overusing the ball a little bit by hand. At the moment, they've had 24 kicks, 21 handballs. Still slippery conditions. There's a time and a place for it, but when you're under the pump, they're fumbling the ball, get the ball going forward and surge it.
The answer of who would go into the ruck
Yep.
as a relief is Dixon, and the clearance for Port Adelaide, but Short picks it up and wallops it back in high, close to the boundary, and they say it was caught inside by about 15 centimetres.
I reckon he juggled that over.
It was Mansell who took it and claimed it.
Oh, no way.
It's out by at least 2 metres, I reckon.
Yeah.
45 around from the goal face. Umpiring. Can't live with them, can't live without them.
What do you think, Crossy? Do you think that was out?
I didn't get a good look at it on the replay, but live I thought it was touch and go.
Yeah.
Mansell heads to the top of the goal square. Numbers there. Wines comes over the top of the big pack and knocks it through for a rush behind. And that restores a 6-point advantage for Richmond halfway through the opening quarter at the Adelaide Oval.
Aaron Bryans and Neil Cross calling the action for you. All-Australian mid Kirsty Lamb, 4-time showdown medalist Josh Franco in the box. As Port Adelaide exit out of the defensive goal square. Houston to Evans, who's looked right at home in this Port Adelaide side. Combines with Williams, who hasn't seen much game time this campaign. Heads up the broadcast swing, looking for Georgiadis, but spoilt away from him over the boundary line. Funny old one for Dylan Williams. So 21 games last season, looked right at home. Just hasn't found his way back consistently into the 23. So this is his 5th game this season. Toss back into play. Dixon and Ryan entangled. Neither got a clean tap. Campbell again, playing a bit around the ball tonight and did well for Richmond. Got it to Banks. Now Dowd to Short. Little sidestep and another wobbler high off the side of the boot up to half forward, and Burgoyne read it best. Cuts it off with a power and then dinks it to Boak. They want to go. He hands it off to Houston. Low and hard through to half forward. Horne-Francis was alone. He marks on the paint of 50, dead in front. Doesn't look confident, and in the end shares it with a short kick that wasn't 15 to Mead. Has to go from home. Off a step from 45. It's touched through on the line. Just lingered a little bit in the air. And a minor score for the Power. Back down to a 5-point deficit. They move to 1-2-8. And Richmond 2-1-13 at the 14-minute mark of the opening term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport.
Broad plays on from fullback, comes to this broadcast side of the ground with a long kick. Dixon getting in position. Ball knocked away from him by Ryan and off legs and over the line. And we get a throw in.
Tell you what, Dixon's actually started the game okay. He's been in a lot of one-on-one marking contests. Hasn't been outmarked, brought the ball to ground, but hasn't got a lot of reward for effort at the moment.
We'll go in the ruck contest now.
I actually like him in the ruck. I reckon he's best suited to the ruck.
For as long as the body holds out,
yeah.
It has to be said. He may not be bending too much, but he never gets broken.
Yep.
So the ball comes off the ruck contest this time. Horne-Francis shows the ball and then finds he can't go through 2 tacklers.
He just had to give the ball there. I reckon it was Jackson Mead in the corridor. Whether he saw him or whether he chose not to handball it to him, but had support but didn't use it and paid the price.
Well, confidence does cost him time to time. Daniel Rioli gets the free kick. He'll pop it to Mansell at the defensive edge of the square. He'll drive it up the broadcast wing. Throw a blanket over about 10 of them. It's knocked down towards Aaliyah, and he smacks it straight back to Mansell. Here come the Tigers again. He'll hand it off to Prestia. Had 27 on return last week. Racking up the footy early here. He's now got 6 as he gives it to Hopper. 2 side steps up towards half forward. Floating up. Mansell got it back. He's wrapped up and gave it away. Port Adelaide now on the counter punch. Butters up towards Horne-Francis in the centre square. Hands it off. Charging by was Evans. Goes long. It's a one-on-one in the goal square. Georgiadis wrapped up with Miller. Hit the deck. Broad came across. Wrapped up by Georgiadis, who kept fighting. And we'll get a ball up. 15 out. 45-degree angle to the left.
Well done from Georgiadis. He was outnumbered 2-1 and was just able to hold the footy up with a terrific tackle on Broad. Good play, because that ball was coming back with interest.
Up it goes. And it'll be off the pack, picked up by Butters. He's got a little bit of space to move in. He kicked it inboard, couldn't find his target. Boak takes it now. Off a step, long to go. Oh, it's carried all the way. Didn't have much time to line it up, did the former skipper. But he made the most of it from about 40, 45 metres out. And so Port Adelaide take the lead by a point, 2-2-14. Richmond 2-1-13. Interesting opening term. We've gone through 17 minutes on ABC Sport. Your experts, Josh Franco and Kirsty Lamb.
That's a great finish by Trav Boak there. He's just sitting, he's playing wing tonight. He's just sitting on the outside of the stoppage. He got a nice handball and just slotted it through, and he's leading the disposal getters for Port Adelaide at the moment with 9. He's got 3 kicks and 6 handballs and a goal to his name.
I'll tell you what, he's one of those players, I must admit, I keep thinking, does he need to retire to give some young kid a go? But he keeps performing, doesn't he? And he keeps just racking the footy up. As you said, 9 disposals currently in this first quarter. He's definitely wound back the clock.
He'll be there next year, I reckon.
Yep.
Game 363 tonight.
Wow.
The Power by a point. Sweet wins it down. Ricochets back towards Thompson Dow. Skyward ball for Richmond up to half forward. Ryan got there late, had 2 to beat and almost tunnelled out of it. Sliding in Butters. Couldn't gather the footy. Dow could. Wrenched it away, handed it to Bolton. He's dancing past a couple but doesn't know what to do with it and is running out of room. Uses Hopper. They did well to escape the danger. Inside 50 though, his kick is horrific. Straight to the leading Aleo, who can cut it off uncontested. And he'll dink it short. Here's Williams at left half back.
This is the play where Richmond have to defend and not allow Port Adelaide to get their uncontested chain going.
Well, they couldn't that time. Down the line goes the kick from Williams. Off hands towards half forward, and Mead is taken in a bear hug by Nankervis. You don't often escape one of his tackles, and he didn't this time. Ball up, and Horn Francis tried to charge through with no effect. Finally, it's just bounced out to Hopper. A little bit of 1-2, and then they go forward. Long kick inside 50, running back with the ball. Just wasn't able to take it, but knocked it on, and it's gone through for a minor score. That was well done by Brown, who on the ground just knocked it forward. And in the end, good pressure from Port Adelaide, able to force Kazitsky to be astray with his kick and through for the minor score. It's a level game now.
Dangerous exit from Houston, went straight up the corridor, knocked away though towards Mead. The kick up to right half forward, and sitting back it can be cut off for the Tigers. So Trezise uses Broad. Now to Hopper, disposal number 9 incoming. As he chips it forward to Rioli. Rumblings that he may find his way to the Gold Coast next year. The soon-to-be 28-year-old. But
soon-to-be rich man, by the sound of it.
certainly would be if he finds his way there. Up towards the 50, knocked away from Mansell, who was his target. Picked up cleanly by Bergman. And another quick kick around the body, errantly up through the corridor that's cut off by Rioli. So messy footy. The goals scored so far tonight have all been on the run. We're yet to see a set shot. As Richmond go long back towards the 50. Jaden Short, torpedo Ryan. He's clunked it on a dewy night in Adelaide with 3 to beat. All 206 centimetres of Samson Ryan. Takes the mark, 35 out, slight angle to the left for Richmond.
Well, I know we're only 3/4 of the way through this first quarter, but hats off to Richmond. Just looking at some of the numbers, the contested ball, the ground ball gets are pretty much even. The inside 50s, currently Richmond 12, Port Adelaide just the 6. Port Adelaide really breaking down in the middle part of the ground and not able to get any clean connect and any clean ball inside their forward 50. Richmond, on the other hand, getting him on the rebound and hurting them.
Big Sampson hasn't missed this season, and his score will remain intact because he's missed everything there. It's marked just in front of the behind line by Jordan Sweet. So record unblemished, still 3 straight. But it is a Port Adelaide ball as they exit defensive 50. Kick a little wide, cut off by Nankervis, who outmarks Dixon. There's your issue in the ruck battle. Toby's in magnificent form. Nankervis back inside 50 for Richmond. Ryan's got rid of his opponent, nearly took the mark, cut off late by Sweet with the fist. Prestia just had a hack at it, the soccer off the deck. Very wide, takes a bounce before the boundary line. Umpire happy to give him the benefit of the doubt and call the boundary throw-in. Scores level 2-2, 14 apiece, time on in the first.
It's been about 3 years with Toby Nankervis at Sydney. One of the most laid-back blokes you'll ever meet, but boy, can he play footy. Triple premiership player. Pretty good career move going to the Tigers.
Ball back into play. Houston. Quick hand pass out to Williams for Port Adelaide. Clears the area as best he can. Broad knocks it back towards the top of the 50. Prestia slips out a hand pass. They've got numbers. Rioli now. Dan Rioli down to half forward. Gee, that was a nice kick. And he laced out Brown. And Brown goes into the pocket. And that wasn't a great kick. As a result, it's turned over. Burgoyne comes away for Port Adelaide. Sends it to a 2-on-1. Dixon is the one for Port. He can't stop the ball coming back. It's off from Miller to Rioli and back inside 50 where Aaliyah takes an intercept mark. He has been finding some form later in the season.
Inside 50s now, 15-6. I reckon a few alarm bells going off in the Port Adelaide coach's box.
Aaliyah back up the broadcast wing for the Power. Dixon, his target, spoilt away, and front and square was Bolton, who arches the back, puts on the Jets. Little 1-2 with Ralph Smith. Bolton tight in the right forward pocket, looks to make some magic, but it's across the face for a minor score on the left-hand side. Does give Richmond the lead again, though, and it is our second lead change of the night. 2-3-15. Port Adelaide 2-2-14. 22 played in the opening term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Kirsty Lamb, Josh Franco with you. And over at Cardinia Park, it's the Dogs by 7 over the Cats. Very low scoring. 1-2-8 to 1 behind.
Williams might not have played a lot of AFL football this season, but they entrusted him with the kick. He went long. He came out onto this broadcast side of the ground. Port Adelaide battling hard. Short was in there, but Burne-Jones picks it off and gives a hand pass to Burgoyne for Port. And then Horne-Francis got the ball and he was saddled up and ridden to the ground by Miller. And the umpire comes in and says, "Give it to me." And Horne-Francis looks up and said, "What hit me?"
Just again, I reckon. Sorry,
I was going to say, it's a much better option for Port Adelaide when they actually kick it long down the line. They've got people front and centre. Lately, they've just been doing it, and they just repeat injuries for Richmond at the moment. It's starting to hurt them.
Out of the stoppage, Baker only found Bergman. High torpedo into the 50 for the Power, and a beautiful diving catch from Noah Bolter. Read where it was going in the left forward pocket, and beats Charlie Dixon in the one-on-one there. The swingman for the Tigers sends it back where it came from to the broadcast wing, and Bergman's waiting. Bit of stat padding between the two opponents. Miles Bergman has it forward of centre wing.
Quick disposal coming up for Bergman.
Richmond by a point. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Bergman into the 50, 4-4 there, launching up. Bolter couldn't cut it off, and the ball dropped short's quickly wrapped up. So we're about 25 out in front of goal at the northern end for Port Adelaide. Looking for a late goal here.
Umpire quick to come in, then slows down, identifies the ruckman. Now we go in the air, comes down and socket well. He was being pushed by Rioli as he socket at the ball. Horne-Francis, it goes out of bounds in the forward pocket. So about 5 or 6 metres around in that scoreboard pocket, with Port Adelaide attacking the northern end of the ground. Will come back into play. So Nan Curvis will go against Sweet. Sweet got it down. McIntosh, who was up forward for the first part of the quarter, is down back and being held up, forces a ball up. So Sweet takes front position, brings it out of the ruck, can't get a clean disposal away. In there was Wines, he handed it off to Mead. Mead with the outside of the foot was so outside he was kicking it outside the boundary. So out on the full free kick to Richmond.
Tell you what, in the modern game, I'd hate to be a small defender, particularly standing a guy like Rioli. Just watching him at that last stoppage, just ripping through, just a whisker away from getting a shot on goal there for Port Adelaide.
Short comes into Broad, the two Premiership Tigers combining. 8 of them out there tonight. This kick is terrible. Wide and out on the full.
Oh, no.
Punched it into the crowd.
That's 50.
50.
So Port Adelaide will be marched into the arc here.
Yep.
As they tried to exit defensive 50, 2 touches, and all of a sudden a shot on goal. Logan Evans will be handed the footy and marched in. Likely be around 25 out.
I tell you what, that's a big price to pay, isn't it?
Mind you.
I mean, it's there, don't get me wrong. Yep. I understand they're the rules, but it wasn't like an aggressive get the ball out of here because he's frustrated, but big price.
15-metre penalty gives Logan Evans a set shot, and he cashes in. In his 5th game, Logan Evans has his 2nd ever goal in the AFL. And Port Adelaide are in front once again. A 3rd lead change of the night. 3-2-20 to Richmond's 2-3-15. Still 3 minutes to play in the opening term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Your experts, Premiership Bulldog Kirsty Lamb, All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco.
I think you spoke about it, Josh. When Port Adelaide do get the ball inside their forward 50 and they've got a chance to have repeat stoppages, it's good to see. We spoke about at the top of the game, the small forwards going to work and actually getting on the fly, getting some movement. There's probably been times earlier this year where they're just really stagnant and there's not a lot of movement. It creates a lot of chaos. It's really hard to defend when you're down. Like, as a midfielder that rolls down to help your defenders out, when there's so much movement, you're trying to switch over and hand over with people and there's just players moving everywhere. So it's good to see.
Bounce in the centre, sweet with a knockdown this time. Might have been a holding in there on Hopper. It got to Bolton. Gets a 1-2 with Nankervis, and then with his third hand pass, he misses his player running off half back. But Ralph Smith good enough to pick it up, give it to Tresize. Forward went the hand pass to Baker, and then his hand pass under pressure was a stray. Port Adelaide will come the other way. They work it through hands finally to Willie Rioli, and a deft little touch drops it in 20 metres to Wines.
We'll hand it off, charging by, Bergman released, driving it up to left half forward, hits Georgiadis, now into the pocket. Kick was very heavy for Dixon. Was expecting him to run back with the fight, but he was actually leading out, and he's kicked it down the throat of Nathan Broad. Richmond will get it out of defensive 50 here. Caleb Smith up to the broadcast wing, whistle at the drop, and chopping of the arms, free kick going Richmond's way.
Spoke a little bit earlier this quarter about Charlie Dixon and the number of contests he's been involved in. He's had some pretty ordinary delivery as well. And again, I think that kick from Georgiadis is really Porter Dixon. Steely
Green, the South Fremantle product, in his 4th game. Pops it on the 45, back wide to Caleb Smith. So the two West Australians sharing some of the footy. And up to right half forward they go. Radonolea rising above Camden McIntosh with another intercept mark for Port Adelaide. But a dangerous kick that's looping in defensive 50. Set up too long for Evans. Mansell can knock it away. Gather and tumble it through from 20. Oh, that's costly. Egregious error from Radonolea. And the Tigers let him know all about it. Mansell says thank you very much. And Richmond are back in front by a point. 3-3-21 to the Powers, 3-2-20. The 29-minute mark of the opening term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport.
Costly sums it up to perfection, I think. You can understand what he's doing. It's late in the quarter. You're just trying to run the clock down, but an aired kick to miss your teammate, it costs you big time on the scoreboard.
Well, they always say, Crossy, you could probably back me up here, Ruckman just kick long down the line. Don't be too cute. I reckon you can put key defenders in the same category. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, the kick was on. He just didn't execute it. But as you said, very, very costly.
Well, important centre clearance now late in the quarter. Richmond go forward through Nankervis. Down to half forward, picked up by Williams for Port. Hands over the top and then barreled the ball out towards wing. Burn-Jones did well. Got a fist on the ball to Georgiadis way down the ground. Gets the return, hand pass. One bounce inside 50. Burn-Jones over the back was Rioli. Just got his man away from the ball and took it in the left forward pocket. 5 metres out. Walks back to the top of the mark. Swings it across his body. Willie Rioli with a goal. And with that, we have the 5th lead change of the opening quarter. Port Adelaide back in front by 5 points. Port Adelaide 4-2-26. Richmond 3-3-21. A seesawing contest, which, to be honest, we didn't see coming.
Well, we didn't, Crossy, no. And just looking at the replay, I think it was a Burn-Jones that was streaming inside forward 50. I thought he originally was going to have a shot on goal, but spotted Willie Rioli and just terrific forward craft to use his body. The kick was to his advantage and a terrific mark in the end.
Yeah, and I think when Port do their review, that's probably a clip that you're going to look at, to have a stoppage on the half-back flank and then to work your way on the wing. A little bit of brilliance by Burn-Jones, but when you get the ball in quickly to someone like Willie Rioli, he's going to hurt you on the scoreboard.
Nice high bounce in the middle. The Power by 5. Tap down in the path of Rosie, who hands it off to Butters. The dynamic duo combining. Couple of bounces with the Shepherd freeing Zach up. He'll loop it in front of the path of Drew. Clean gather. Tumbling kick though to Mead. Put him under some pressure. And sure to bring him to ground. 45 out from goal. Quarter time at Cardinia Park. The Dogs lead the Cats 2-3-15 to 2 behinds. If you're wondering why it's so low scoring, I've just had a glimpse at the game and it is a mud pit. Old school footy there down at the Cattery. Out of the stoppage, Banks rolling footy looking for Brown, who walks it over the line in front of the Odie stand. Check this out, Kirsty.
Oh, it is a genuine mud pit down at Cardinia Park. I've never seen it quite like that.
Cannot see any grass there.
No, not in modern day footy. We don't see that too often, do we? Meanwhile, the ball comes in, throw in on the beautiful surface at the Adelaide Oval. We've had a little bit of rain, but I'll tell you what, those flags aren't doing a lot of work on top of the scoreboard down there. They're dead still.
Crossy, I reckon the irony of that as well is that I don't think players actually have screw-ins anymore.
No,
They just wear moulded, so they'd be out there slipping and sliding like no tomorrow.
I'm not sure you can actually get screw-ins.
I don't think you can.
I don't think you're allowed to wear screw-ins anymore. So off the ruck contest, Rosie sends it towards half forward. Wine shakes off a tackler, goes and gets the ball, then off to Butters, hooks it around the corner inside 50, big pack, ball comes to the front. Drew in a collision, got over the ball, didn't get possession though. It's found Curvis, he's hooked in, but he got it away to Hopper, and then Hopper clears the area back towards centre wing, and that'll do us. An enterprising game in the opening quarter, as I said. Not quite what we expected. Richmond has been really taking it up to Port Adelaide, but it's the home team, the Power, with the lead at quarter time. 4-2-26 plays the Tigers 3-3-21.
The goal scorers all individual. So for the Power, Evans, Rioli, Boak and Rosie. For the Tigers, Prestia, Kajitsky and Mansell. 5 lead changes in the opening quarter. So we're set for what should be a cracking contest. Port Adelaide leading by 5 points. If you do want to hear the game at Cardinia Park between the Bulldogs and the Cats, jump on the ABC Listen app and hit the AFL button. You can get in touch with us as well across the night on the text line 0437 774 774. Wherever you're listening on ABC Radio, Sport Digital or the ABC Listen app, this is Saturday Night Footy on ABC Sport.
The road to an Olympics or Paralympics is rarely straightforward. It's filled with pain, pressure and expectations.
The gold is always on my mind.
For me to go to the Olympics would be everything.
Being able to bring home the first ever gold for Australia would be a very, very proud moment for me.
ABC Sports documentary Countdown to Paris follows 5 Australian athletes in their quest to make it to Paris 2024.
I knew straight away that qualifying for Paris was what I wanted to do.
The desire to make an Olympics never goes away.
Countdown to Paris is available to watch now on ABC iView and the ABC News In-Depth channel on YouTube.
This is ABC Sports coverage of the 2024 AFL season. Every match on the ABC Listen app.
Look for the AFL button.
Behind centre wing on the broadcast side, Banks sends Richmond up to right half forward. Launching was Kajitsky, outnumbered. Got hands to it, but tapped it down to Rosie. A couple of fumbles, and Prestia rips it away. Arches the back from 40 and slots the first for the Tigers.
Put it into the path of Drew, hacked it off the left foot, forward, luckily found Rosie on the turn, slipped it inside the post for a goal.
On hands and knees, got a handball towards Bolton, the fend-off, now off towards McIntosh. They just keep flowing forward. Brown thrusts it to an empty goal square and gathered by Kajitsky for the goal. And they're back in front.
Off the pack, picked up by Butters. He's got a little bit of space to move in. He kicked it inboard, couldn't find his target. Boat takes it now, off a step, long to go. Oh, it's carried all the way.
And up to right half forward they go, Radonaway up. Rising above Camden McIntosh with another intercept mark for Port Adelaide. But a dangerous kick that's looping in defensive 50. Set up too long for Evans. Mansell can knock it away. Gather and tumble it through from 20.
Burn-Jones did well, got a fist on the ball to Georgiades way down the ground, gets the return, half pass, one bounce inside 50, Burn-Jones over the back was Rioli. Just got his man away from the ball and took it. Walks back to the top of the mark, swings it across his body, Willie Rioli with a goal, and with that we have the 5th lead change of the opening quarter. Port Adelaide back in front.
The 2024 AFL Premiership season.
On your radio.
ABC Sport Digital.
And on the ABC Listen app.
The Power and the Tigers going blow for blow at the Adelaide Oval. The home side up by 5 at the first change. 4-2-26 to Richmond's 3-3-21. But a surprisingly competitive contest so far. Great to have your company for it on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app. Aaron Bryans and Neil Cross calling the action for you. And alongside me, alongside us I should say, your ABC Sport experts tonight. Premiership Bulldog Kirsty Lamb and 4th-time showdown medalist Josh Franco. How do we see that opening quarter, Kirsty?
It was a good contest. We said at the start of the game and we'd like to see a tight contest from both of them, coming off sort of disappointing losses last weekend. But I think from Richmond's point of view, what I'm liking them seeing is they're setting up really well behind the ball. We spoke about them generating a spare in defence, and at times when Port exit their defensive 50, it's a long kick out, but it's often to a 2-on-1 down the ground, and it's generating repeat inside forward 50 entries for Richmond, and a couple of times it's come off for them and they've been able to score and they're able to kick a goal. So I think from a defensive side of things for Richmond, they're setting up really well behind the ball, and it's starting to cost Port Adelaide, particularly if they don't lower their eyes and hit up a short kick and retain possession, because if they're just going to keep kicking it long down the line, it's going to keep coming back just as fast.
Absolutely, and I think also too, coming into this contest, I must admit, I, in my mind, had pretty much written Richmond off, but they actually have proved me wrong in that first quarter. They've been outstanding. So in terms of a contested ball and the ground ball gets, it's in Port Adelaide's favour, but not by a lot. The clearance count at the moment, Port Adelaide just up as well, but the inside 50s, and to your point, Port Adelaide coming out of their D50. We saw a couple of weeks ago when the Power played the Western Bulldogs, they did want to kick mark their way out of their D50. Today they've been more inclined to go long down the line, and as you said, Richmond have been able to create repeat entries, turn the ball over on the sort of middle of the ground or sort of half forward for the Tigers and re-enter, and as a result they'll be able to get scoring opportunities. But I must admit, as I said, credit to Richmond, they've come with the right attitude and the right mindset. If they relax at any stage, Port Adelaide, you'd imagine, would take advantage of it, but at the moment we've got a real contest on our hands.
Port by 5 points. Early possession getters, Ollie Wines has 11 and Travis Boak 10. Meanwhile, for the Tigers, Jacob Hopper with 12 and Dion Prestia and Dan Rioli with 8 apiece. Earlier today, the Giants defeated the Suns by 39 points. St Kilda defeated West Coast by 72. And the middle game saw the Hawks knock off Collingwood by 66 points. The Magpies' flag defence looks all but over. Hawthorn's season well and truly alive. Nathan Kruger with a concussion in that contest, and Jack Ginnivan, the star, with 31 touches and 2 goals. Over at Kardinia Park, the game between the Dogs and the Cats, their second quarter's just started. You can hear it on the ABC Listen app. Bulldogs by 13 points there in a low-scoring, muddy affair. And for Super Netball fans, especially those here in South Australia, the Adelaide Thunderbirds are through to the grand final. They knocked off the Vixens by 25 goals in the major semi-final. A massive blowout.
I'll tell you one thing I just saw that I haven't seen for a long time. I think it was Trezise. He thought he was starting on the ground. Clearly he didn't look at the magnet board and then had to sprint off to start this quarter on the bench.
We're underway nonetheless. Port by 5. Second term on ABC Sport. Nankervis wins it, but only found Butters, who races away out of the centre square. Penetrating kick into the 50. Knocked down by Bolter as the players converge. Dan Rioli, hospital handball to Broad. Banks did well to assist him. Hands it across the goal face. Now Ralph Smith's under pressure from Boak. Wants to keep it in play when he could have walked it over. He's handed it straight to Evans. 45 out. He can screw it centrally. Rioli was held. 20 out from goal, and the whistles stayed away. Mark paid to Bolter, and Richmond can get out a defensive 50 through Broad. Willie Rioli rightfully aggrieved.
Broad goes short to short, and short from behind centre wing. Down the line he goes. Good mark taken, and they're away again. Dan Rioli off half back, forward with the hand pass. Prestia into the pocket, the scoreboard pocket. Bolton was close, but he couldn't drag it in over the boundary line for a throw in. Should mention this, there's been a half century at the Adelaide Oval. It's not one that Richmond's are necessarily proud of. Their 50th quarter they've lost this season was that first quarter.
2-15 for the year overall in win-loss record. The Tigers sitting down bottom, but competitive so far tonight. Toss back in their 50. Nankervis won it down. Was looking for Prestia, knocked away from the footy. Nankervis goes again. Burgoyne got a hold of him. Bit of a height and weight mismatch there, but the youngster did well to hold him up in front of the scoreboard. Ball up. Nankervis takes it out of the ruck this time, fends off a couple and handed it to Prestia. He got it out to Dow. Now off a step Campbell. Belly of the ball as he squares it up. 20 from goal for Richmond. Radonolea there with the fist. Hit it straight to Baker. Prestia back to Rioli. Hooks it towards goal. Richmond get the first of the second quarter. Dan Rioli with his third goal of the campaign puts Richmond up with our 6th lead change of the night. 4-3-27 to 4-2-26. 2 minutes into the second term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Your experts, all Australian midfielders, Kirsty Lamb and Josh Franco.
Well, I thought it was an outstanding bit of play there from Richmond, able to create repeat stoppages inside their forward 50, build the pressure, and then able to release it from the stoppage with quick hands. And I'll tell you what, you talk about stars of the competition. Rioli, he said he's 28 now, looking to go potentially to the Gold Coast, but a magnificent snap from about 45 metres out. That's not easy to do, so a great finish there for Rioli.
Well, Richmond throw down the question to Port Adelaide again. They held a 1 point lead. Ball in the middle. And it's gone towards Richmond's end, but it'll be controlled by Port Adelaide. Winds to Horne-Francis, who kicked it down towards centre wing eastern side. It's taken off hands and out to Bolton, to Dan Rioli, the half-back for Richmond. Goes to half-forward with a kick-off, threw up one hand and took it to Logan Evans. Just going back. He's got something, hasn't he?
This is a risky kick.
But he's pulled it off pretty well, straight into the centre, into the corridor. He's found Mead, who was well off his mark before he was called to play on.
Mead heads towards inside 50 for the power. Knocked away from Sweety's target. Baker may have been taken without it. Got a handball in the tackle of Dixon. Cut off by Boak. Loads up from 45. It's wide right. Never a chance. And a minor score for Port Adelaide. Levels the scores at 4-3, 27 apiece. 3 minutes into the second term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport.
Travis Boak, 1-14 for the season now. 1 goal, 14 behinds. Rioli plays on from fullback for Richmond, out towards centre wing. Mark taken there solidly by Brown, hands it off to Short. And then down the line he goes, and another mark. This is Kajitsky now, taking it about a metre inside the boundary, out on the eastern side at right half forward. Tigers will go into attack. Sends it high and hopeful. Houston at the front, virtually uncontested in the end, takes the chest mark intercept for Port Adelaide.
Fresh off 34 last week. Swings around and hits Horne-Francis. Still in the defensive 50 and wants to go. Has a run, but he has no idea where he's going. Dow closes, tackles, forces him to handball to himself. And Horne-Francis keeps going. Dow was just looking at the umpire. And it freed up the power midfielder. Heads to Bergman and he'll square it up. Straight line kick to Evans. Wanted to hand it off to Boak, charging by, and it forced Ryan to step off his line. And as a result, they've given away a 50. And Evans will be marched up towards centre half forward for Port Adelaide.
Tell you what, I reckon the message from the coaching staff, I'll get back to you in just a sec.
Ball was off short to Boak. He had his kick smothered as he tried to play on. Second time lucky. Second time he, instead of going short to his right, he went a bit longer to his left and he found Rosie 25 out, bang in front.
I was going to say, I reckon the message, it seems like, from Ken Hickley and the Port Adelaide coaching staff is to be more aggressive. We've seen Logan Evans on the far side at half-back. He got a long 45 in the corridor. We saw Dan Houston try to pierce one back through the corridor as well. And again, Bergman on centre wing here as well. So playing an aggressive brand, Rosie needs to go back and finish this.
Rosie, who hasn't been in great form in front of the goals, and there he is again. Not quite as bad as the former skipper, but maybe it afflicts those who are captain or have been captain. Away to the right, minus score. Enough, though, to give Port a 1 point lead. Another lead change. We're up to 7th.
9-12 for the year, Connor Rosie. Jaden Short plays on. No one to match him as he just marches out of defensive 50 and finally kicks it to McIntosh. Combines with Bolter, who's directing traffic with the footy in hand at left half back. And then booming kick. It's almost his trademark now. Down the line he goes. Aaliyah floating across the pack. Knocked it over the boundary line. Port by a point. Early stages of this second term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport.
Unfortunately, the set shots for Port Adelaide this year just haven't quite gone to plan, and unfortunately they're currently sitting the worst in the comp in terms of accuracy. So hopefully they can fix that this last half of the season.
Yep, 42.8% to be precise. That's their success rate at kicking goals. So Richmond get the ball forward again. It's in the hands of Baker. Inboard, he didn't mean it, but he found Mansell, and the umpire said that was 15. Crowd had some doubts, but it's going to be awarded. Mansell will go back to look at his second goal.
Yeah, well, they've been pretty hot on that short kick, haven't they? I reckon across the competition, they've been calling a lot of play on from kicks that aren't making the required distance. And as you said, I think the Port Adelaide faithful are a little bit unhappy with that non-call there from the umpire.
Ryan Mansell out of the Eagles here in Adelaide. Woodville West Torrens looks at goal. As soon as it was off the boot, he was pumping the fist. So a good result for Richmond. They take back the lead. They lead by 5 points. 5-3, 33 plays 4-4, 28 after 7 minutes of the second quarter. What a contest. Down on the boundary is Josh Money.
Just a bit of work being done on the ankle of Samson Ryan on the Richmond bench. Getting it strapped up now doesn't seem to be a huge amount of concern, but one to watch.
And just looking at some of the numbers as well, to start this second quarter, we've only played 5 minutes of actual game time, but contested footy, Richmond's way 9-5. The Gramble gets Richmond's way. The uncontested possessions 20-11 at the moment in favour of Richmond. And at the moment, they're looking quite ominous. And it's not Port Adelaide getting it all on their own terms. They've definitely got a game on their hands here at Adelaide Oval.
Tigers by 5 over at Cardinia. The Bulldogs by 20 now over the goalless Cats in the second quarter. You can hear it on the ABC Listen app. Sweet down to Drew and then Horne-Francis out of the middle. Wormburner that rolls towards the 50. Cut off by Trezise. May have caught one over the shoulder. And the free kick is paid against the skipper, Connor Rosie. So Trezise in his 4th game. Another mid-season pick for Richmond. There's a fair few out there for both sides. Call to play on as he steps off his line and has to panic the exit straight to Willem Drew. It bounced off his chest. Richmond there to pounce. Baker gathered, taken high. No, holding the ball.
I reckon that's a great decision from the umpire. I reckon Baker actually played for that one, ducked the head. Whether the umpire saw that or not, but good decision.
Horne-Francis got him. He's at right half forward now, lowers the eyes, leans back on the kick and laces out his skipper in Connor Rosie, who marks straight in front, 30 out.
Much better entry into your forward 50. We've seen through the course of this season they have a tendency just to bomb it long and put it to the top of the goal square, but they look so much more dangerous when they lower their eyes. You've got forwards leading at you, and this is the opportunity that Connor needs to take. We spoke about the set shots not being overly accurate this year, and he needs to go back and slot this one through.
Rosie crosses the paint of 50. Spears it low and hard from 35. And the skipper has his second. And another lead change. We're up to 9. Port Adelaide up by a point. 5-4-34 to Richmond's 5-3-33. 10 minutes played in the second term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Your experts, Premiership Bulldog Kirsty Lamb, 4-time Showdown medalist Josh Franco.
Well, we've seen that time and time again throughout the season with Port Adelaide in that kick. Inside 50 from about 60 or 70 metres. They kick almost that 3-quarter, almost a 7-iron. A little bit of punch on it, not too high in the air. Then their forwards start a little bit deeper and running to the hole that's created. And normally it's a Charlie Dixon or a Todd Marshall that's impacting that aerial contest, and on this occasion it was Connor Rosie. And as you said, Kirsty, good to go back and finish and put Port Adelaide back in front.
Well, whose turn is it now? Out of the middle, Richmond fighting hard, but it'll go to Burgoyne. Slips a hand pass to Butters. Across with the left foot, down to half forward. Rosie read it best. Bounced up high into his hands, caught from behind surely. And he lost the ball. He signalled the umpire. Well, I gave a little bit of a hand pass, the umpire said. Throwing the ball or dropping the ball or incorrect disposal or maybe just holding the ball. Take your pick. Dan Rioli with a free kick. So meanwhile the defensive 50's cleared out. He drops it over the top, finds Bolter, and he just runs away from Dixon. Smashes the ball down to half forward. Zerk Thatcher read it best, took a chest mark easily away from Kazitsky. And that wasn't the best attacking move by Richmond.
Port by a point. Zerk Thatcher at left half back. Sends it long towards the corridor, and it's cut off by Dan Rioli. Quick on the counter, he wants to go. Races forward, up to the 50. Radonolea couldn't reel it in. Spills to the back. Mansell overran it. Awkward bounce for him. Ricochets wide though to Baker. Got a kick in the tackle from 30. And it hits the right hand behind post. So out on the full. Free kick to Port Adelaide. They get away with one there. Richmond looking deadly on the surge. Port Adelaide by a point.
What I will say, I must admit, I don't like Port Adelaide's. They are so aggressive at using the corridor. I don't like it. On that occasion, they nearly got burnt. They dodged a bullet.
Behind post wobbling like Lee Matthews hit it. So Zerk Thatcher out of defence. It'll come back again, short with a hand pass away to Bolton for Richmond. Inside 50 again. Ball sits high. Comes off the hand straight down to the front, through for the minus score. Just pressured out of it. Radonolea was there to pressure Smith it was. No, it wasn't. It was Green who was trying to kick the ball through. He did, but only for the minus score.
And Crossy, when that corridor kick for Port Adelaide comes off, it looks sexy, it looks fantastic. But when it doesn't, gee whiz, you leave yourself open for turnover.
5-4-34 apiece, and you can see the breath of Dylan Williams as he takes the kick in. It's that cold out there. Plenty of rain across the day, but not as bad as Melbourne's getting hit right now. There was hail earlier. Gadinia Park's a mud pit. Williams combines with Rosie, and now at the outer side go the Power. A little bit of volleyball as it's flicked around between both sides, and then a beautiful little scoop from Shea Bolton out the back. Campbell now inside 50, and Aaliyah just disposes of Mansell with ease. Takes it off. And the intercept there for the Power as he goes across the goal face now. Little chip kick to Houston. Port Adelaide with possession and control. He'll head back towards the scoreboard pocket to Williams.
Juggled it a bit, but was able to hold on to the ball. Wants somebody to lead up. Out there in the eastern side. In the end, he tries to hit Butters over the top. Baker came, took it away from him. Close to the boundary line. The hand pass came out from Banks, and now they go into half forward. Radnalea fell over. It went to Bolton. He picked it up. Thought about a hand pass. On the turn, sends it long. Oh, Mansell was going back with a flight. He had about a metre of room and dropped it. So dropped it through for the minor score. And so that leaves Richmond with a lead. And we're up to 10 lead changes. Richmond 5-5. Port 5-4 very quickly. Down to Josh Money.
Good news for the Tigers. Samson Ryan's coming back onto the ground.
Houston, bullet pass to Radnalea. Across the half-back line for the Power. Over at Gadinia, the Dogs lead the Cats by 15. Midway through the second there as well. Richmond with the surprising lead here at the Adelaide Oval. They're taking it up to a finals contender. Port Adelaide moved the footy through the corridor again. Rosie looks wide this time to the outer wing. Evans was all alone. Spots Dixon in the pocket and he plucks it. Put it in his path and the big man charged to meet it. Deep in the pocket, 25 out.
It's interesting. I talk about Port Adelaide being overly aggressive coming back through the corridor. That kick from Houston, I know the listeners that are tuning in can't see that, but that kick there was actually perfect. It wasn't too aggressive. The kick was definitely on. Houston's a good kick. It's just the long ones with high hang time that can get intercepted, but that occasion, Houston was outstanding. Set up the ball movement, the inside 50 and shot on goal to Dixon.
This could be anything. Dixon 14-13 for the year. Tightest of angles, and he misses to the left. Levelling the scoring once again. 5-5-35 apiece. Still 9 to play in this second term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Kirsty Lamb, Josh Franco and Josh Money with you.
So short to Bolter was the move by Richmond. Then out on the eastern wing, he sends the ball high. Off hands Rosie. Feeds it back to Logan Evans. Evans goes high into centre half forward. Short comes to the front. He's almost collected by Georgiades. He got the ball and then was tackled, lost it. Burgoyne slips it forward. Drew just knocked it away from a Richmond opponent. And 25 out, Darcy Byrne-Jones butchered a shot at goal. Kicked it like the backman he once was. Sprayed it into the behind post, out on the full. Richmond free kick, right back pocket.
Unfortunately, that is just a little bit of Port Adelaide's year. When you have an opportunity to put yourselves in front, just find a way to turn it over.
Bolter with the exit for Richmond. Up to a pack of players at right half back and off hands it rolls over the boundary line. So scores level, 5-5-35 apiece. The last time these two sides met earlier this year, which was round 3 when Port Adelaide got the job done at the G, Byrne-Jones had 3 goals, but isn't quite in form at the moment. Just 1 major from his last 4 games. Toss back in. Beautiful footwork there from Mead. Dodging a couple of tacklers. Hands it off to Houston. Into the 50. Spilled out the back off the hands of Lord and over the boundary line. Close to the left behind post. Riverbank stand end on the right-hand side of your radio dial for the Power. And the fans in attendance getting fairly vocal in a cold night in Adelaide. Fair few Tigers supporters though on the hill. A lot of yellow and black there at the visitors' end. Toss back into play. Charging out Dixon with the tap straight towards Horne-Francis, who slipped over. It was beautiful ruck work. He stands back up the ball, but it's ripped away from him by Banks. Scrubs the kick up towards the defensive 50-yard. Campbell with a fumble. And Rioli becomes the tackler on Mead. We're now 25 out from goal for the Power, left forward pocket.
And on goes the struggle. Been enthralling, really. What, 5 times scores have been level, and what are we up to, Aaron? 10? 10 lead changes. Ball comes back into play. It's not clear. Picked up by Drew, sends a left foot back into the pocket. Ball finds its way to the ground. Into Bolter's hands, and finally it's smuggled over the line somewhat suspiciously by Trezise, who gave a hand pass out to start with. And the rush behind for Port Adelaide gives them a 1-point lead. 5-6 plays 5-5 after 18 minutes of the second term at the Adelaide Oval on ABC Sport.
That was almost a try, wasn't it?
And it was our 11th lead change, keeping the tally going. Dan Rioli to the outer side. Zert Thatcher in front position. Got some space to cut it off in front of Kajitsky and bangs it straight back in. Front position, Lord was cleaned up by Georgiadis. Spills front and square to Hopper. He got it out wide for the Tigers. Little chain pressed here to Ralph Smith, but it was too hard, the handball. Just shoots past him over the boundary line. And forward synergy a little bit off, and we saw that last week with Dixon taking out Todd Marshall.
Well, the one good thing for Port Adelaide at the moment, they're getting their front half game going. They're getting repeat entries. They've had the last 4 inside 50s. You keep building the pressure, eventually the opportunities will come.
Toss back in. Samson Ryan wins it against Dixon. The tap down towards Dow. A diving handball out of defensive 50. Cut off by Burgoyne for the power. Uses Houston, then Aaliyah. Low, hard, Mead. Sliding in, takes the mark. 45 out. Excellent entry from Aaliyah, and they get around him for it as well. Set shot to come, slight angle to the right.
Port Adelaide look like such a different team when they're prepared to lower their eyes and kick it to a leading target. The one prior to that, it was a perfect opportunity for a forward to come at the kicker. Long bomb in, Richmond have numbers, they get it out. But a repeat inside forward 50, lower the eyes and actually give your forwards a chance to have a set shot.
Jackson Mead going for glory from 50, loads up, pulls it right. It'll sit up on the behind line and smash through for a minor score. So Port Adelaide now up by 2. 5-7-37 to 5-5-35. Been a while since we've had a margin that isn't a point. We approach time on in the second term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport.
So Richmond heading out to the eastern side of the ground, Broad with ball in hand, having received the kick in. And he goes short to Prestia, just on defensive 50. Now he's called to play on. Sends it long and high down the line. And again, Zert Thatcher with an intercept mark. Straight away, hand pass to Rosie. Looks inboard with his kick, goes high, and it should be marked. And Georgiades spilled it. Chest mark unopposed, and he lost it. Trezise comes away, gives it to Rioli. 1-2 with Hopper. He's at half back, over the top, Ralph Smith. Forward hand pass goes, and a big tackle by Dixon. He couldn't get away. Port Adelaide will go back into attack.
They're on the surge. Evans's kick, a little long, but it may work as it tumbles to Burgoyne at centre half forward. Can hand it to Mead, pops it into the pocket, perfectly weighted to Georgiadis. Turnover footy at its best, and the Power have it tight in the pocket, 30 out.
Well, he didn't make any mistake on that entry there, Georgiades. In the end, it was a pretty good chest mark, but the one prior to that, you talk about coach killers and turnovers that are undefendable. Port Adelaide did really well to turn the ball over on centre wing and come back through the middle and get this forward entry, but gee whiz, Georgiades, if he had opened his mouth, he would have choked on the footy in that previous mark.
Starts on the fence at right half forward. Difficult angle, but not impossible. Georgiadis with the methodical approach. He'll start right. He's looking to swing it back. That is beautiful. His first of the night increases the Powers lead to a game-high 8 points. 6-7-43, plays 5-5-35. Still 4 to play in the second term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Your experts, Premiership Bulldog Kirsty Lamb, All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco.
Talk about turnover footy on the wing, and we spoke about Charlie Dixon before the game and what sort of impact he was going to have. And sometimes you just need to throw your weight around, and he did on that far wing, and he caused a turnover. It wasn't pretty going in, but sometimes you just need to take your opportunities. And it was a great shot, or a great kick by Mitch. You called it. It was a tough shot, not impossible, but good for him. He's only had the 2 disposals, so to drop that soda on one side, come across the other side and take a mark and go back and kick a really difficult goal is good for him.
Georgiades has a future as a swing bowler based on that kick, because no breeze out there, and he swung the ball a long way. Richmond comes away from the middle through Bolton. Bolton down to half forward. Ball comes to ground. Logan Evans with the pressure. Turns it over in the end. It's able to be picked up by Dow. He's taken in a tackle straight away. Wines somehow got it out to Evans down to half forward. And Broad comes late over the top of the pack and takes the mark, intercepting at the corner of the square at half back. Quickly inboard he goes to Prestia, down to half forward straight away. Mark taken there, and slowing things up is Green. Green inside 50, lead up another mark. So Richmond, Port Adelaide let themselves down in defence, and Richmond through Banks, or rather it is Campbell, who will have a look at the goal face from 45 out.
Yeah, and this shot from Campbell, just off the back of 3 precision kicks. That one inside 50 was about a metre off the ground, but found the Richmond bloke on the chest, and he needs to go back and kick this just to settle the nerves, because momentum swung in Port Adelaide's favour for the last 5 or 6 minutes.
Seth Campbell, Tasmanian, off the rookie list, comes in, shoots for goal, and no mistake. Good finish. He's had a few shots at goal this season. He's been 50-50. He nudges just ahead. 8 goals, 7 across the season. Richmond, they trail by 2 points. I was expecting that had to be another lead change, but it isn't. Richmond 6-5-41 trails Port Adelaide 6-7-43. We're well into time on in the second term on ABC Sport.
And as we said, just against the flow and the momentum of the last 10 minutes, Port Adelaide, as we said, were able to get their front half game going, create the repeat entries, create pressure and get scoring opportunities off the back of that. And Richmond, their forwards were going cold, I think, at one stage in that probably the last 10 minutes. They hadn't seen a lot of footy, but as I said, some really good kicking, some really good foot skills inside forward 50, and Campbell finished off with a terrific major.
Over at Cardinia Park, the Cats getting back into that contest. The Western Bulldogs lead by 16, closing in on half-time. Port by 2 here. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport in the middle. Now Curvis to Dow, now Prestia, and then Banks for Richmond. Slipped over as he tried to kick, just lost his footing, and it rolls straight to Wines, but he's given it back. Prestia to Baker. It's messy footy right now. He'll thrust it in the path of McIntosh from 45. Camden McIntosh goes for home, and it's through for a minus score on the right-hand side. And the blemish there for the Tigers makes it a 1-point game. 6-7-43 to 6-6-42. 3 to play in this second term.
So it'll be Evans with the kick in, dropped it in short to Bergman. Inside defensive 50, able to wander off and consider his options. Elects to go straight into the centre square, and he turns it over straight away. Trezise with the intercept mark. Looks back inboard for Richmond. Richmond not wearing their traditional yellow and black. They are wearing yellow and black, but dominated by the yellow jersey. As Port Adelaide turns the ball over at half-back. Francis Evans coming off half-back, or Logan Evans, I should say. Good kick. Dixon, it was low and hard this time, and Dixon able to take the mark. Gets back off the mark, looking for Burne-Jones in the pocket. Was he interfered with? The umpire said no. Rioli got it, and then it was run across the line by Broad, and the umpire said that was okay. Oh, Broad dodged the goalpost, took the ball behind the post, and I think he was thinking he couldn't do it, but he did, and in the end he got away with it. So minus score, Port Adelaide. Their lead is 2 points. Not long to half-time. We'll get down to Josh Money.
Yeah, just interesting watching Zach Butters v Liam Baker in this first half. Baker not starting with them at centre bounces, but once that happens, he's following him around the ground. Just the 11 touches and his disposal's been down, so he's doing a job, Baker.
Rioli heaves it to right half-back. Ball hits the deck, and Nankervis jumps on top of it. He's wrapped up by Boak. Ball up to come.
Well, I thought that last entry from Port Adelaide, Burne-Jones, was a little bit stiff not to get a free kick. Just looking at the replay, Rioli made contact, just slight contact with Burne-Jones' head, so it should have been paid a free.
And Curvis down to Wine. Speaking of contact to the head, he's caught one over the shoulder there by Dow. Whistle again, staying away. Boundary throw-in. Right in front of the Williams stand. That's looking a little bit kind of muggy out there, a bit cold and grey.
Not muggy. It's a bit colder than muggy.
Tossed in. Sweet down, looking for Ralph Smith. Hands it back. A little couple of side sets from Trezise. The youngster, bit composed under pressure. Back to Ralph Smith for Richmond, down the line. Off hands, Kajitsky. Couldn't control it. Houston's there to pounce. He hands it to Zerk Thatcher, then Alir. Kick smothered for the power. Boat, though, puts his head over it. Couple of beat, did well. Hands it back to Houston, backtracking away from Green. He'll square it up to Radonalea. And the Fijian across half back. Uses Bergman. Searing away from the defensive 50. Long kick towards Burn-Jones. They're going to go end-to-end here. Into the 50. Dixon juggles it up against Bolter, who's pleading that he got a fingertip on it. The umpire dismisses him quickly. Charlie Dixon with the mark. 15 out, tight angle to the right.
Well, big Charlie Dixon hasn't had a huge impact to the game. We mentioned him in that first quarter where he was getting to a lot of contest but not getting a lot of reward. But on that occasion, that was a terrific, almost contested mark in the end with Bolter bearing down on him. But again, from Port Adelaide's perspective, they need to go back and finish this goal.
Dixon, tight angle, closes and squeezes it through. And it means a lot to him. Celebrates with the front row. Big flex for his teammates. Dixon's on the board. And Port Adelaide's up by 8 once again. 7-8-50 to the Tigers, 6-6-42. As we close in on half-time here at the Adelaide Oval. Your experts, Kirsty Lamb and Josh Franco.
We spoke about it not quite being the year that I'm sure he would have liked, but going back and slotting that one, I have no doubt will do his confidence the world of good. He's throwing his weight around tonight. He's been put in the ruck, which he doesn't traditionally do. So he's got an enormous work rate, and he's only halfway through the game, so he'll have to rest up at half-time and come out, but that'll do his confidence the world of good, and hopefully he can continue to play well. He hasn't had a huge impact, but that's the start.
So closing in on half-time, contest back in the middle. Sweet had the better of it, and Presti is over the ball now. He hasn't taken it, dragged it in. The umpire calls play on. Nankervis slipped a hand pass, turned it over straight away. Drew gave the head pass off to Rosie, looking for Dixon up forward. Umpire calls play on. Ball's in the square, nobody touching it. And Willie Rioli with a huge tackle on Broad, who picked it up. There's a siren for half-time. What a way to fire up the crowd. That could easily have been a free kick. Willie Rioli pounced, Broad picked it up, and bang, he was tackled. Had the opportunity, tried to get it out. Crowd not happy.
Glad you heard it, Crossy, because it was drowned out by the noise, I reckon, that siren. The intensity from the Power faithful and their players, immense in those final stages. Half-time here at the Adelaide Oval, and the home side is up by 8 after leading by 5 at the first change. 7-8-50 to Richmond, 6-6-42. Goal scorers, 2 to Rosie, singles to Boak, Rioli, Georgiadis and Evans. Meanwhile for Richmond, 2 to Mansell and singles to Prestia, Dan Rioli, Kajitsky and Campbell. Over at Cardinia Park, half-time there as well, and the Western Bulldogs lead Geelong 4-10-34 to 2-3-15. If you want to hear that call, you can jump on the ABC Listen app and hit the AFL button. And the reason why Geelong are back in the game, 18 inside 50s to 3 in that second term. So they didn't have a goal at quarter time, but it's been a very muddy affair, and they're well and truly back in the hunt. So I will keep you up to date with that contest across the night. But here, all eyes fixated on these young Tigers taking it up to the finals contender, Port Adelaide, who are holding their own. And right now up by 8 points, the Power at the major break. Kirsty Lamb, Josh Franco, all Australian midfielders in the box. What did you make of that first half?
Well, the thing I've just written down on the piece of paper in front of me is the Tigers just won't go away. They've been outstanding. As I said before the bounce, I thought it was going to be Port Adelaide in a cakewalk, but these young Tigers have come out here to Adelaide Oval, crossed the border, and they really have taken it up to Port Adelaide in terms of the contested ball, the ground ball gets, all those indicators to talk about mindset. They're really matching it with the Power. Inside 50s, there was a bit of shift that quarter because Port Adelaide were able to get their front half game going, and off the back of that, they're able to create some shots on goal, but Richmond just seemed to be able to hang in there and against the momentum, able to give Port Adelaide enough trouble to stay within touch at half-time on the scoreboard.
Yeah, well, you look at all the stats across the board, and they're all pretty even. There's not really a big difference at all. But yeah, I think when we talk about the midfield, Port's midfield, I think also helped in that quarter, getting on top of Richmond. Rosie obviously hit the scoreboard again, and he's up there in leading disposals with Dan Houston. But I think what I like from Port Adelaide is just the entries inside forward 50. When they can hit up a target, they look much more dangerous. And then on the flip side for Richmond, when they get the ball on the outside and they go quick, they look really, really dangerous. They're obviously a young group across the board, but geez, they've got some pace, they've got some excitement about some of their younger talent coming through. And yeah, when they get on the fly, they look really dangerous up forward.
And the other stat as well, when we talk about inside 50, sometimes when you have a lot of inside 50s and the game's played in your front half, and I guess to your point, Kirsty, in terms of the method with which they re-enter the ball inside their forward 50, and if you get those repeat entries and you just keep bombing it in long, and I know there's a lot of density and a lot of numbers inside your forward 50, then the chances of scoring there become quite limited. So when you do get those opportunities, we saw that perfect one from Alir where he took possession of the footy, lowered the eyes, and I think he hit Jackson Mead, I think it was him, going inside forward 50. So just the ability and have that composure under pressure, just to lower the eyes, hit that target coming up at you as much as you possibly can, just so that you're not bombing the ball in and giving the Richmond defenders time to get across an air assist and create another scramble and create a stoppage. But at the moment, it's a really tight contest. And as we said, Richmond just won't go away. And Port Adelaide, they'll go in pretty satisfied at the moment. So will Richmond. It sets us up for a really big second half.
Should be a thrilling finish, hopefully, on ABC Sport. Port Adelaide up by 8 at the major break over Richmond. And just repeating over at Cardinia Park, halftime there as well. And the Bulldogs lead the Cats by 19 points. All available to you on the ABC Listen app. We'll run through some of the scores from earlier today, the injury news as well for the Adelaide Crows and the results at the MRO, plus the Adelaide Thunderbirds' victory in the major semi-final over the Melbourne Vixens. It's all to come in a moment's time, but for now, on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app, we can take the latest from the ABC Newsroom.
ABC News, good evening. I'm Sally Ann Young. The White House says it's in regular contact with executives at CrowdStrike, the company tied to the global internet outage. Larry Buttrose has the details.
White House officials say President Joe Biden is continuing to receive updates on the situation. US federal agencies are also assessing the effects of the outage on government operations. These have included delays for people including returning US citizens entering the country from Canada in the north and Mexico in the south. The outage took down systems in a wide range of industries around the world, including health, travel, media and banking. Networks are coming back online across the globe, but it could be some time before all operations are back to normal.
Meanwhile, the federal government is warning Australians to be wary of scamming attempts in the wake of the major tech outage. It says there are concerning reports of scammers trying to email or call individuals and small businesses pretending to be from CrowdStrike or Microsoft. The advice is to be extremely cautious and not provide any personal details online or on the phone. The federal government says it wants to see Israel take concrete steps to stop the expansion of settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories. Foreign Minister Penny Wong issued the statement after the International Court of Justice published a ruling that Israel's occupation of the Palestinian territories is illegal under international law. The UN's top court also found that Israel must pay reparations for damage caused by its occupation. Former staff and current staff at Warrnambool College say student-on-teacher abuse is rife across Victoria. Olivia Sanders has the details.
Work-related nightmares and crying in the car before work are among the mental health impacts former and current staff at Warrnambool College say they've experienced after prolonged exposure to a toxic work environment. It's alleged students brought makeshift weapons to class, hurled racist and sexist abuse at teachers, and stalked a teacher at a supermarket. Last year, WorkSafe ordered the State Education Department to place a mental health worker on site to support staff, but the department has brought the matter to VCAT, reportedly saying it would set a statewide precedent it can't afford.
Warrnambool College didn't respond to request for comment, while Victoria's Education Department said it can't comment while the case is before VCAT. The Bureau of Meteorology warns that a westerly flow following a cold front will bring vigorous winds to inland and coastal areas of southeastern Australia. Winds in the New South Wales Alpine region could reach up to 130 kilometres per hour, prompting the state's National Parks and Wildlife Service to advise postponing backcountry travel until conditions improve. Meteorologist Alenka Duma says the strong winds will continue until the early hours of Sunday.
We are still seeing damaging winds across the ranges and eastern seaboard of Australia, predominantly across the Alpine regions, as well as through the Illawarra, Sydney Metropolitan District and parts of the southern tablelands and Hunter region is where the winds are currently the strongest.
Overseas Democrats in the US continue to weigh up President Joe Biden's chances of beating Republican Donald Trump in the November election, with one of them revealing an incident he found unsettling. More from the BBC's Peter Bowes.
Seth Moulton, a congressman from Massachusetts, was one of the first to speak out after the president's disastrous debate performance. Now he's elaborating on why he thinks his longtime mentor and friend should step down. Joe Biden, he says, used to greet him with a big, wide grin and say how glad he was to see the congressman. But last month, at a small gathering in France, he said the president didn't seem to recognise him. He says the incident led him to the crushing realisation that Joe Biden would be unable to defeat Donald Trump in November.
A specialist team has retrieved the bodies of 4 climbers dead for a number of years in the high Himalayas of Nepal. The Nepalese army deployed the team of 30 military personnel and Sherpas to recover bodies from the so-called death zone above an altitude of 8,000 metres. There have been more than 300 deaths in the Mount Everest region since records of climbing there began a century ago, and some of the bodies still remain up near the Himalayan peaks. And in sport in the NRL, faintly keeping their finals hopes alive, the South Sydney Rabbitohs have defeated the West Tigers 42-28. Damien Cook marked his 200th game for the club, kicking 7 goals in front of a crowd of over 16,000 in Gosford. You're up to date with the latest from ABC News.
Looking for an easy way to find out what's happening in the world of sport? Stay up to date with the week's best sports stories, highlights and analysis with the ABC Sport newsletter.
Oh, that is amazing!
It's sports content to make you think, or allow you not to. Delivered to your inbox every Saturday.
Game, set, bingo!
To sign up and get the latest sports news each week, head to abc.net.au/connect, scroll down and select ABC Sport.
This is ABC Sports coverage of the 2024 AFL season. Every match on the ABC Listen app.
Look for the AFL button.
Radonolea there with the fist. Hit it straight to Baker. Prestia back to Rioli. Hooks it towards goal. Richmond get the first of the second quarter. Dan Rioli puts Richmond up with a 6th lead change of the night.
Ryan Mansell out of the Eagles here in Adelaide. Woodville West Torrens looks at goal. As soon as it was off the boot, he was pumping the fist. So a good result for Richmond. They take back the lead.
Rosie crosses the paint of 50. Spears it low and hard from 35. And the skipper has his second. And another lead change. We're up to 9. Port Adelaide up by a point. They're on the surge. Evans' kick, a little long, but it may work as it tumbles to Burgoyne at centre half forward. Can hand it to Mead, pops it into the pocket, perfectly weighted to Georgiadis. Starts on the fence at right half forward. Difficult angle, but not impossible. Georgiadis with the methodical approach. He'll start right. He's looking to swing it back. That is beautiful. Uses Bergman. Searing away from the defensive 50. Long kick towards Burne-Jones. They're going to go end-to-end here. Into the 50. Dixon juggles it up against Bolter. Dixon, tight angle. Closes and squeezes it through. And it means a lot to him.
The 2024 AFL Premiership season.
On your radio.
ABC Sport Digital.
And on the ABC Listen app.
11 lead changes here at the Adelaide Oval between the Power and the Tigers as we continue round 19 on ABC Sport. Great to have your coverage around the country and the globe on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app. Port Adelaide lead 7-8-50 to the Tigers, 6-6-42. 2 goals to Connor Rosie and to Ryan Mansell. And so far, in terms of individual performances, Dan Rioli with 21 touches, Dion Prestia with 18, Dan Houston with 17, and Connor Rosie with 16. Meanwhile, over at Cardinia Park, halftime there as well. If you want to hear the call, you can find it through the ABC Listen app. And the Bulldogs lead the Cats by 19 points in that game. Very low scoring, very muddy. Seen some stills of the coach's box, and there's fog on the windows, and you can barely see a patch of grass on the ground. It's muddy and ugly, but some old school footy between the two Victorian sides battling for finals contention. And the Bulldogs leading by 19 points there. The goal scorers all individual in that one. So Ugle-Hagan, Treloar, Stengel, Richards, Henry and Darcy. Leading possession getters, Richards with 17, Treloar with 14, as with Duncan Bontempelli as well. Aaron Bryan's calling the action here at the Adelaide Oval alongside Neil Cross, Premiership player Kirsty Lamb and All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco, your experts. Earlier today, the Giants defeated Gold Coast by 39 points. So the Suns once again losing on the road, unbeaten winless rather, as the away side. So a very on and off season for the Gold Coast Suns, who may find the path to September a little bit treacherous if they can't find a win on the road. Jesse Hogan had 4 goals. Ben King had a poor afternoon. 6 shots at goal for 3 behinds. Lockie Whitfield dominated with 40 touches and Tom Green had 34. St Kilda defeated West Coast under the roof at Docklands by 72 points. The big news there, Liam Ryan is going to be cited by the MRO, you imagine, for a high bump on Liam Stocker. He did come off the ground for a concussion test but did return, albeit it was still a pretty high bump that will cost him, I think, at least some time. Liam Henry hurt his knee as well in a tackle with Harley Reid. Tim Membry, the star of the show, with 5 goals. Jack Steele and Jack Sinclair with 31 touches each. Over at the MCG, a hailing wet affair between the Hawks and Collingwood, but it didn't faze Sam Mitchell's side. They won by 66 points over the reigning premiers. So Hawthorn's September hopes well and truly alive. They've sent Collingwood into free fall. They're down in 13th. The Hawks now a game out of the 8. Jack Ginnivan had 31 touches and 2 goals. And Massimo D'Ambrosio with 26 touches and 2 majors of his own. In the Super Netball, for our South Australian listeners, you'll be very pleased about this result in the major semi-final down the road at Adelaide Arena. The Thunderbirds didn't matter about the change of venue. They demolished the Melbourne Vixens by 25 goals, 68-43, to lock away a spot in the grand final that was always going to be in Adelaide anyway. But now they get a week off and a chance to freshen up before that game. It was incredibly one-sided, so they shot at 91% to the Vixens 78, and as it has been throughout the season, a defensive masterclass. 36 turnovers by the Melbourne Vixens. So poor shooting and elite defending from the Adelaide Thunderbirds sees them through to a grand final and a chance to defend their championship. In the NRL today as well, the Rabbitohs defeated the West Tigers 42-28. The Broncos topped the Knights 30-14. At the moment, at the 55-minute mark, the Storm leads the Roosters 14-4. The text line, if you do want to get in touch, 0437 774 774. Kirsty, Josh, we're expecting more of the same from this second half. Is it going to be an enthralling battle between these two sides that are at opposite ends of the ladder right now?
Well, I think from Richmond's perspective, they would certainly hope so. Obviously, a really young group, but the challenge for them all season has been trying to play good footy for 4 quarters and be consistent in the way that they approach it. But from Port's side of things, you'd like to see them almost put the foot on the throat a little bit and take the game away. They've been able to hit the scoreboard, but then they give one back, and it's just been this real arm wrestle the whole game. So, you know, I have no doubt Ken would have spoken to the guys around, if you're going to hit the scoreboard, let's try and hit it a few times in a row. Let's try and build a bit of a gap here and take some momentum into the rest of the season.
Well, it's interesting as well, even looking at Port Adelaide, when you come up and the psyche around it, when you come up against the side who's bottom of the ladder, you probably expect to go in at half-time having blown them out of the water. That's not the case. Port Adelaide, they can't panic because Richmond have actually come to play, as we said, and all the KPIs indicate that they have come here to play from a mentality point of view, and they're playing a pretty good brand of footy. And Port Adelaide definitely aren't out of the woods in terms of getting the 4 points in this game, but they just can't panic and think, you know what, we should be 10 goals in front, because the reality is you're playing against a side that's having a real red-hot crack. So more of the same from Port Adelaide. Again, try to get their front half game going, which they like to do. To your point, Kirsty, in terms of their entries inside forward 50, lower the eyes to try to make the most of the opportunities you get when you do have the ball in your front half. But I think from Richmond's point of view, they've just got to keep playing the same brand, because you know what? If they can apply enough pressure to the power, and when I talk about pressure, actual pressure, but also scoreboard pressure, it might actually get Port Adelaide a little bit jumpy and a little bit nervous, and then we've got a real game on our hands. But at the moment, it's a real arm wrestle, and I think it's going to stay that way for the rest of the game. And you know what? Who knows? Richmond kick a couple early, and it's definitely game on.
The seesawing is tremendous. So we've had 11 lead changes. We're doing our best to roll through the record books. AFL Tables has a tremendous amount of stats on it, but lead changes aren't in it. At least we can't seem to find it. But our producer, the cult figure Adam Jones, has trawled his way through the internet and reckons the most in history is 19, Essendon and Sydney from 2010. So we're on track at the moment if we continue at this pace. Well, we've got a record in the box as well, so we'll try and navigate our way through that. It's pretty thick, but maybe we can find the actual official history in there. But if you know, let us know on the text line 0437 774 774. But at the moment we've had 11 lead changes, and we reckon the most is 19. Tom's flicked us a message on the text line, says, "Hi team, the Tigers have been surprising so far. Can you point out one difference that stands out for Richmond tonight compared to the rest of the season?"
Well, look, having watched Richmond a little bit throughout the course of the season, as I said, I don't know how comparing that to other games, but as I said, their mentality, their intent around the footy has been very good, and at times some of their ball movement's actually been pretty good as well, and some quick movement inside forward 50 that have allowed them to create some opportunities. But as we said, they've created a style that has created an arm wrestle of a game. So it's anyone's ball game as we go into this third quarter.
Some news downstairs as well. Josh Money standing behind the boundary. Down to you, Josh.
Just interesting looking at some of the vision from the change rooms at half-time, Aaron. Ken Hinckley made a beeline for the midfield group, tore absolute shreds off them, and they stood there in silence afterwards. So you'd expect some sort of response from that group in this third quarter.
Well, that's interesting. And I know you can't just base it on numbers, but probably the one bloke that needs to get going is Butters. Hasn't had a huge impact. We heard Josh throughout that second quarter talk about Baker, who's going to him after the centre bounce. He hasn't had a huge impact. I thought Rosie has actually done a pretty good job. Although Ollie Wines has actually started the game really well as well. And Horn Francis is probably doing his usual flashy stuff and flashing in and out of the game and looking threatening at times. But I must admit, I'm not sure that was probably a time and a place to give them a spray. But we don't know the inner workings of what happens with their midfield group.
We're also talking about, Butters, Rosie and Horn Francis matching up against a midfield without Tim Taranto, without Jack Graham, without Dustin Martin. Basically tonight it's been Hopper, Prestia and Dow.
Yeah.
They're, matching, if not bettering, a superstar midfield.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, having said that, Prestia can play. Hopper's a star as well. You've got Bolton that can roll through the middle of the ground as well. So anyway, we got game on, start of the third.
Port by 8, Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Here's Neil Cross.
11 lead changes in the first half. What will unfold in the second? Burgoyne out of the middle gets first possession. Nankervis smothered the Wines kick and then follows up, knocks it wide for Ralph Smith for Richmond to go to the top of the 50. Ball comes off hands. Hopper with an opportunity, around on the right foot, sends it to the top of the goal square. Ball off hands again, coming through and unable to get a clean kick away. It's through for a minus score. Was Campbell taken down in the tackle. So Richmond start with them behind and they trail by 7 points after 30 seconds of the second half.
Talk about the physicality of the game. Radigalia smashed Campbell over the line on that example.
Houston launches it straight up the spine. No one was really expecting it to fall there. Bounces off a couple of shins. Sealy Green ends up handballing it to himself, but he's a run down in Burn Jones, who kept pursuing. Spills out towards Radonolea, shanked it off the side of the boot, tumbles 5 metres to Rosie, and he soccers it out of there. Big heave to the outer wing. Rolls its way to Rioli, 2 to beat, and he's split them. Parting the seas up towards Lord. Slides in on hands and knees. Releases Burn Jones. Empty 50. Goes from 60, and Burn Jones slides it through. Port Adelaide up by 13. A game high margin as they go end to end. 8-8-56 to Richmond, 6-7-43. 90 seconds into the third term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Your experts, all Australians, Kirsty Lamb and Josh Franco.
Tell you what, Willie Rioli, that's the sort of stuff that you miss when you have him out of the side. Class on what is a very dewy night. Just to be able to maintain that footy, it was a really dirty ball out on the wing, but to turn his player inside out, to hit Georgiades, a low darting ball, and it just provided Darcy Byrne-Jones with an inside 50 kick that he'd probably do 9 times out of 10 if he had his options. So a great finish for them.
Back in the middle, Sweet gets first possession. And another one as Wines gave it back to him. Then off to Horn Francis inside 50. Willie Rioli down. And just trying to knock it out. It came off the boot, I think, of a Richmond player, went over the boundary line, and the umpire says that's good enough for a throw-in. So it's about 70 around from the goal face. Port Adelaide doing the early attacking in the second half.
Just looking at the replay as well, I reckon Rioli a little bit stiff not to get chopping the arms or holding on from his direct opponent on that occasion.
Wines almost had the ball, lost it. But he tackled a Richmond player without the ball. Sweet picked it up, barreled one inside 50. Didn't mean to kick it that way. It's just the way it turned out. It bounced away from Dixon, and in the end, Bolter took it over in that scoreboard pocket for the throw-in.
Power by 13. Game high margin. And over at Cardinia, it's the Dogs by 15. You could hear it on the ABC Listen app. Toss back in. Sweet. Matching up against Nankervis. Neither got a clean tap. Blind turn from Dow. Got it out of there. And Trezise slams it up towards the centre square. Waiting for a couple of power players. Burgoyne uses Wines, then Boak. Off to Houston, was a little low. He shins it forward and then toes it up to Byrne-Jones. His 40 out from goal and wrapped up in the tackle over the boundary line by Mansell.
So 3 minutes into the second half. 13 is the margin, which is a game high. Mostly, well, that's the first time it's been in double digits, I think. So off the ruck contest, Trezise gets it away eventually towards centre wing. Aaliyah fighting hard, picks the ball up, gets the hands clear, just hand passes it. Ralph Smith picks it up. His hand, he forces it forward. Still they go forward. Richmond, what is going to get a free kick now? It's play on advantage. Short from 60. Dobbs in the little pass. Bolton with the lead up and a mark 40 out. Basically straight in front.
Well, that was superb play then again from Richmond. And you talk about, and I must have been a marvel at the skill and execution under pressure from these AFL players these days, particularly by hands. Just the 1, 2, 3 quick handballs to open up the player in space and find Bolton inside forward 50.
Shea Bolton averaging close to 18 possessions a game this season. Any wonders he'll go out to his right, kick it from about 48, just lays back on the kick and comfortably sends it through for a goal. So the Tigers get one back. 7-7-49 Richmond, Port Adelaide 8-8-56, so a 7-point margin 5 minutes into the third term on ABC Sport.
He just makes footy look so easy sometimes.
Yeah, he does.
He's just all class. He works extremely hard up and down the ground, but every time Richmond go inside forward 50, if you've got him within 5 or 10 metres, you know he's going to have an impact. You know he's got a classy finish on him, and he's leant back on that nicely and put it through.
I'll tell you what, he's one of those players, you talk about the old days of Ablets and the Wayne Careys, that people come, Lance Franklin, they come to game to watch him, those guys play. He's definitely in that category. Absolute.
A reason why the Tigers won't let him go.
Yeah.
Port by 7 in the middle. Nankervis taps it straight to Wines. Port Adelaide will get the clearance. He hands it back to Houston. Just hacked it off the side of the boot and checks side up towards the logo on the broadcast wing, and Prestia was there. Cut off and then tackled by Burgoyne. Will get a ball up. Tossed into the air. Sweet this time wins out. Got it to Burgoyne, who brought it down to his boot. Quick kick off a step up towards Roseeg. Did well to gather under pressure from Smith. Hands it off towards Drew. Around the body up to Rioli. Lost it in the lights. Bounces off his hands. Broad slides in. He's wrapped up. Can't get back to his feet. Ball up to come right half forward for the Power. Currently up by 7.
So the ball goes in the air and Sweet had the better of it. In the end, Hopper came out and then fumbled it. Rosie had a toe in there. Ball bouncing around. Would have been Baker who eventually got a hand pass out. Picked up. There was an in danger in there. There was a hack at the ball by a Port player.
I think it was Houston. Crossy.
So it'll be Campbell to take the kick. Surely he's played on. Yes, now he's called to play on. Goes back to Broad by hand. Broad looking for somebody, anybody, nobody comes to him. He's under pressure and he kicks it out on the full. At least got it outside 50. And Drew will take the free kick for Port Adelaide.
Kick away from a chance at scoring for Port Adelaide. Drew called to play on, so he'll loop it up. Square and kick, top of the goal square. Nankervis got a hand on it, bounces straight back to him, and he's sandwiched by a couple of power players. 20 out, straight in front. Tossed into the air. Sweet wins it down, straight in the path of Rosie. Had 3 to beat, flung a handball out. Broad was there. And then smashed forward by Prestia, bashing it with a fist. Boak was waiting on the arc, hands it to Drew. Then Houston from 45, screwing it to the behind line, and Dixon's there. Strong miss, reeling it in on the behind line. It'll be a tight angle, but just a step away from his second.
Well, going back to what you said in that third quarter, Kirsty, Dixon, not a huge impact on the game in terms of touches, just the 5.
Dixon opens the angle and snaps his second. Port Adelaide back up by 13. 9-8-62 to the Tigers, 7-7-49. 8 minutes into the third term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Your experts, Premiership Bulldog, Kirsty Lamb, 4-time Showdown medalist Josh Franco. Let me get your accolades out, Josh.
My bad, sorry, Aaron. And going back to Dixon, he's had 6 disposals. He spent some time in the ruck when Jordan Sweet comes off the ground for a breather. He's kicked 2 goals, 1, and as I said, he's been in a lot of aerial contests, and on that occasion he was just strong enough, big enough, good enough to take the contested mark and go back and finish to kick Port's 9th goal. Great play from the power.
Say Richmond's best defender, Noah Bolter, on him. A big man, every bit as big as Charlie Dixon, but he beat him that time, did the Port Adelaide player. Ball back in the middle, bounced down, and Hopper came through, missed the ball. It's at the back end of the square. It's like soccer. They're trying to hack it, and Houston hacked it out into Francis Evans' territory, over his shoulder, back down to half forward. Miller picked it up. Hand pass away, set up Rioli. Just tapped it into space. Wines was there, gave it to Boak. And then it was Butters who set it high inside forward 50. Bolter in that struggle with Dixon. Fell to Broad, gave it away to Prestia. Not a great kick. McIntosh on the bounce got it. Hand passed it off to Broad. Close to the boundary line down the line. It came off Ralph Smith. Straight to Zerk Thatcher for Port Adelaide. Straight back inside 50. And I thought there was a big chance for Horn Francis there, but he couldn't take it.
Smith darts it out of there. Hits McIntosh. Premiership Tiger. 45, beautiful kick inside to Nankervis, his skipper, off to Bolton, who scrubbed it, but beautifully. Low and hard as it rolls to Banks. He can handball over the top. Green's all alone, marching into the 50 and drills it from 40. Steely Green, the best name in footy, has his first for the night and his 4th for the campaign. 7-point deficit once again for the Tigers. 8-7-55 to 9-8-62. It's pretty similar to the first half, but we're not getting the lead changes purely because Port struck first. But it's back and forth, end-to-end footy, blow for blow. And Port Adelaide currently leads by 7 points. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport.
It was the kick into the middle of the ground that just really opened it up then for Richmond, and they had numbers out on the far side, and they just put Port's defence under an enormous amount of pressure. And when you're prepared to take that kick on and it comes off, it often results in a goal, and they were able to do that then, Richmond.
Just an extraordinary contest, really. It's not what we expected. And the bottom place Tigers really taking it to the power. Out of the middle, it'll be Rosie to take possession. Off to Butters. Butters draws a man, sends it to the wing. Burgoyne took a step too many and his kick was partially smothered. Richmond the other way now. Share it through the hands. Bolton near the interchange gates. Dummies away and then kicks it long. And Rathanalea brought it to the front. Baker picked it up. He dodged and weaved, got around a couple. Hand pass to McIntosh. Nobody to kick to, tries to force a kick inside. And the intercept was taken by Logan Evans for Port Adelaide at the point of the square at left half back on this broadcast side.
Power by 7. Evans wide to Aaliyah. Chips it to Butters, who was almost nonchalant as he wheeled around off a step trying to kick through Camden McIntosh, who was happy to smother. Ricochets to the boundary line. Aaliyah falls into the footy. It's ripped out to Burgoyne. Now Butters gets another go. Bit more height on this hack up to the broadcast wing. And Mead was there being held. He'll take the free kick and go into the 50. Long kick, 2-on-2. Knocked to ground. Broad becomes the tackler. Holds up Evans. And a ball up to come. 35 out, slightly left of centre.
So, ball in the air. Just sense this is the moment for Port Adelaide, and off the ground, picked up by Drew, away to the left with his left foot. It was just a quick snap, that's all he had time for. Do you just think Port Adelaide, they've got the possession, they've got a little bit of momentum, this could be the moment. They've stretched the margin to 8 points.
And they do look threatening every time they go inside their forward 50 at the moment, Port Adelaide.
Short pops it to Smith in the right back pocket. Young Caleb, the 19-year-old, who missed pretty much all of his debut year with a foot injury, and he's kicked it straight out on the full. His first game was at Cardinia Park against the Cats, stuck as the sub for a large majority of it. Now getting his first crack at the full time, that was poor. Burgoyne will take the free kick for the Power, loads up into the 50, ball hits the deck as the pack collapses. Handball comes out Richmond's way. Baker with the half volley. Massive roost. Up towards the broadcast wing, it bounces favourably for Brown, who gives it to Kajitsky. They want to keep going with the overlap. Up to right half forward. Beautiful work from Mansell. Got past Radaglia. Empty goal square. He can tumble it with a snap from 45. Oh, that is audacious. And Mansell has got 3. 2-point game at the Adelaide Oval. Port 9-9-63. Richmond 9-7-61. 13 played in the third. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Kirsty Lamb and Josh Franco with you.
Well, I watched the Mansell v Radaglia matchup when they got possession inside their defensive 50, Richmond, and I thought, there's no way Radaglia is going to be able to go with this bloke, but to his credit he did. Was able to create a contest, but Mansell kept his feet. I'll tell you what, we had the best vantage point of that snap for goal and rolled it through beautifully against the flow once again.
As you would say, an educated kick.
That was unbelievable, wasn't it?
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
So back in the middle, what have Port got now? Suddenly, after silly me thinking they had the momentum, Richmond's closed within a couple of points. Port get the break from the middle through a scrub kick. It's out to Butters from Boak by hand and then back to Williams. Has a chance to go inside 50 and high. Bolter crunches the pack, knocks it away. Mead got it, lost it in a tackle. Now Drew's over it, flipped it to Charlie Dixon, and then Horne-Francis tried to duck a tackle. Play on advantage. Baker for Richmond, down to half forward straight away. Ball over the back. Zerk Thatcher read it well, and he'll clean up for Port Adelaide at the back.
To the outer wing he goes, set up a bit for Boak and knocked away by Short. Becomes the tackler on Williams. And a ball up to come at left half forward for the Tigers.
So if there's one criticism of Horne-Francis the game, he's dynamic, he's electric, he's an outstanding young player, but just needs to give the first give. Sometimes just try to take the tackler on a little bit too much.
Port by 2, Richmond pushing forward out of the stoppage. Sitting back was Williams, under pressure though, he's handed it straight off towards Dan Rioli. That's Baker rather, who uses Campbell, and then back out towards Ryan. Booming snap into the left forward pocket. Big crunch by Kajitsky, who bowled over Aaliyah. And at the back it goes and over the boundary line. Last touch by Brown. We're in the Riverbank stand end. Left forward pocket for Richmond. So the right-hand side of your radio dial. Down by 2 over at Cardinia. The Dogs by 9. Geelong closing in a very wet game. Tossed in. Dixon powdered it straight to Baker. He eyed the big sticks and kicked it straight into Boak. Didn't realise who was around him. Sliding in, tackle laid as Burgoyne got on top of Ryan. And the Power attackers thought he just dove on that. He's got away with it. Quick ball up. 35 out, Ryan down, head over the footy. Trying to be rip it out of there was Hopper. And gave it straight to Baker, who's wrapped up by Rosie. Port by 2.
Well, that might have been the Sam Draper rule that was going on out there with Ryan. So the ball goes in the air. And Horne-Francis finishes with it as it came off the ruckman. Probably, I'll give that one to Dixon, who knocked it down. But he just It was like lifting a suitcase as he picked up Hopper. He wasn't happy with the fact he was lying all over Horne-Francis. So the ball's in the air again. Horne-Francis comes through, gets it onto the left foot, tugs it into the middle of the ground. Oh, well done by Port Adelaide. Off the hands it went to Georgiades. Burn-Jones has to scrub the ball forward. Broad's back there by himself in defensive 50 for Richmond. And he just covers up. And then with a kick was pretty good. He's got, might be Tresize who went to ground there. Oh, it'll be it's his mark anyway as he goes back slowly and waits for movement for Richmond.
So the Tigers look to move the ball through the outer side. Up the wing they go. Players converging off hands. Hopper's waiting there, front and square. Hands it off to Banks. Back to Short. Low and hard as he chisels it to McIntosh, sliding in. It popped out like a bar of soap. Houston was there, but his kick is poor, trying to pick off the corridor again. Treacherous delivery. Caleb Smith was there, just behind centre half forward. The West Aussie wants to go for home from 70. Booming kick as he drives it towards the top of the goal square. And off hands, it's through for a minor score. Picked off a bit too much there, Caleb Smith. And the margin is a point. Port 9-9-63, the Tigers 9-8-62. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport.
And talking about biting off more than you can chew, I reckon Dan Houston did on that occasion once again as well. And talking about Port Adelaide's aggressive nature and the way they want to play, probably not the kick.
Houston to bring the ball in now from fullback. Runs his metres and kicks it out, and there's a holding decision. It's gone to Dixon. The umpire initially signalled for Richmond. Bolter had come over the top and knocked it away. Dixon recovers it now. Short to Rosie. On the outside, running hard. The veteran Boak. Inside forward 50 into the pocket. Good kick. Set it out in front of Georgiades, and he was able to take the mark away from the pressure of Broad. He wants to centre it up. Surely he's played on. He took a couple of steps, and the umpire said no. Around on your angle.
It looked like from the naked eye, Crossy, that he did come off his line there. And the Richmond, not sure who that is on the mark, but he was protesting to the umpire as well. I think it's like Broad.
It is Broad?
Yeah, he was protesting to the umpire, saying he's come off his line. I reckon he got away with one there, Georgiades.
So now he's a set shot. He starts from outside 50 and outside the boundary. Slow build up. Now he trots in. It's Georgiades. Kicks it beautiful. Lovely finish. He might have been lucky to be able to do that, but he was very effective when he got the chance. 2 goals for Georgiades. Port Adelaide sneak away again. 7 points up, 10-9-69. Plays Richmond's at 9-8-62. We're just about to get to time on in this third quarter. Seesawing contest across ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app.
It was a really good build-up by Port Adelaide. They worked hard on the outer wing, particularly Travis Boak running from defensive 50 and Rosie to just put the ball out in front of him nicely. And Georgiades also worked back really hard. He saw space inside forward 50, and on that occasion your midfield syncing up really, really well with your forward line for Boak just to put it out into space and allow Mitch to run and jump at it. And it was a really good finish from him.
Thoughts of Premiership player Kirsty Lamb. And your experts tonight alongside 4-time showdown medalist Josh Franco. Port by 5 as it's tossed up in the middle. Tapped down, Nankervis toes it off the deck up towards Burgoyne, chasing it back with the flight. Did well to get into the territory and gather cleanly. Wobbler of a kick, it works out though into the lap of Sweet. Too far out to score, but a kick away from an opportunity. Big man a little hesitant, Richmond's flooded back. Called to play on, he tries to sidestep the young man in Riola, and he got around him. Hands it off to Burn-Jones, who snaps to the goal square. Knocked away from Lord, whistle. And it's coming back. There's a bit of a conversion, a little bit of a scuffle amongst some players, and it's going to be
down the ground for Burn-Jones, then straight to the ground.
Yeah, downfield free kick. So DBJ collected, and Ollie Lord.
Yeah, I agree, Crossy. So not much in that from Bolton. No, I tend to agree with you there.
Lord has the free kick in front of the scoreboard. Short approach, and Lord says thank you very much. His first of the night. And extends Port Adelaide's lead. 11-9-75 to Richmond, 9-8-62. Time on in the third. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Your experts, all Australians, Kirsty Lamb and Josh Franco.
Well, we've seen all night when Port Adelaide kick one and get a couple of goals or a goal in front, Richmond always counter-attacked and are able to hit the scoreboard. But you just sense at the moment the margin's now 13 points, that if Port Adelaide can somehow manufacture a goal here and just to almost break that elastic band, you think they can potentially break this game open.
So they've had it out to 13 points. This is the third time in this quarter. And that 13-point margin, game high. So back in the middle, ball bounce. Neither ruckman really got the advantage of the tap. Drew socketed it down the half forward for Port Adelaide. Bolton eventually picked it up. Oh, he shook a tackle. And then he lost control of the ball, and the umpire said that was incorrect disposal. I'm not sure that should have been a free kick. He wasn't actually effectively tackled, but Burgoyne nevertheless takes the free kick, drops it into half forward. Horne-Francis comes over the back and takes the mark, 51 from goal. And he's just waiting for the appropriate lead. I don't think he's got the distance in his leg from here.
Might be this little three-quarter kick.
And he's dropped it in short, and he's dropped it in too short for the lead up from Lord. And Ralph Smith said, have some of this, those sitting in the first row of the crowd.
I hate that kick. It's just, it's low percentage. It's a tough shot on goal if you mark it. Like, you're just better off putting it at the top of the goal square.
Port by 13, toss back in, sweep from behind, tapped it straight to Butters. He's dumped heavily. A one-arm sling tackle with the Guernsey by Nankervis. Kick ended up in the goal square. Whistle has stayed away and they'll rush it through. So he lost his balance as he kicked Butters, and the Guernsey was being pulled in the process, and he's been flung towards the ground. Thankfully he's popped back up, but it was a heavy landing. And the minor score puts Port Adelaide up by 14. 11-10-76 to 9-8-62. Closing in on three-quarter time.
Well, the difference between those players meant it literally was a rag doll. That's what Nankervis was able to do with Butters. Now, Richmond have got it out to centre wing. Zirk Thatcher got Bolton in the air, and Bolton virtually jumped over him. Then the hand pass went off to Evans, and Evans sent the ball down the ground to half forward, again off the pack to the front. And Butters fumbled the ball across the boundary. We'll get a throw in. It's at left half forward on this broadcast side for Port Adelaide. They're attacking that old scoreboard into the ground. 11-10-76 plays 9-8-62.
Inside 50s this quarter as well, guys, is Port Adelaide 14, Richmond 9.
Starting to push away the home side. Can Richmond answer? Toss back in. Sweet in front position. Tapped it down. Houston caught in a collision with Mansell. Nothing really in it, but both a bit impeded as it comes down towards Evans. Beautiful sidestep of Nankervis, and then a long kick into the 50. Lord tapped it straight down to Evans, who is surging by to kick the goal. Excellent set play by the big man. Frankie Evans has kicked it, and it is on in the centre square. He'd been teased by a melee across the night, and finally the players are getting stuck in. Evans and Mansell just won't relent. The players came in, they broke them up, they've all walked away, and they've started again. A blood rule as well for Ryan Mansell. And the hit was essentially as he cleaned up Evans, who was kicking inside 50, so he's hurt himself, Ryan Mansell, in the process. Josh Money will keep an eye on him, but Port Adelaide fans won't care. They're up by 20 points now. A game-high lead at the 25-minute mark of the third.
Well, it was interesting looking at the replay. It was, Mansell, as you called it, Aaron, he hit and flattened Logan Evans as he disposed of the ball inside forward 50. Jordan Sweet then came in as the third player and put Mansell down. I thought the non-officiating umpire was going to pay a free kick against him, but didn't, and then a spot fire broke out.
Just go down to the boundary, Josh Money.
I was going to say exactly what Josh Franco just did, so he's got me covered. That's exactly how it played out. Can confirm.
So, first hand on the ball went to Nankervis. The ball picked up by Drew, sent it long and high and wide and out to the wing on the eastern side. And then it was Rioli who ended up with it off the left foot down to half forward for Richmond. They'll get it inside half forward. Baker running onto it, found a bit of space, but just shoved slightly over the line by Aliir, who was off balance. And so a throw in about 20 around from the goal face Richmond have kicked 3 goals to the quarter. Port Adelaide, 5 goals. So they've got a little streak going, Port. They're out to 20 points, which is a game-high margin. And we're in time on.
Toss back in, Richmond's 50. Prestia got it out of the stoppage, back towards Hopper, and now Rioli off a step again. He has produced something miraculous. Dan Rioli has 2 goal of the year contenders tonight in dismal conditions. His second just as good as the first, and a quick answer back for the Tigers. 14 points the deficit once again. 10-8-68 to Port Adelaide's 12-10-82. Still 4 to play in the third. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, and your experts, Premiership Bulldog Kirsty Lamb and All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco.
You can't give Dan Rioli any space at all. Like, he's only got 4 or 5 metres on Darcy Byrne-Jones, and that's the second time that's happened in this game. There's just a little bit of space and he finds a way to make you hurt.
And I know Rioli ended up kicking a magnificent goal there for the Tigers, but the work of Prestia there just didn't blaze away when he got possession of the ball in that scramble at the stoppage. And really good composure and really smart play to kick it rather than just blaze to goal.
Only 2 goals for the season coming into this match, Dan Rioli. He's got 2 now as Wines comes out of the middle, sends it down to half forward, and there's Rioli, the man of the moment. Hand pass back, did well to Miller. Miller's nice little kick in the end. He picked it off really nicely, and Richmond will just steady out there. So Miller goes along with the kick, or rather, ball comes off hands. Rathanalea picked it up, just scrubbed the ball forward. It's close to the boundary line, not over. Umpire circling, it says holding the ball. And under that, I'm sure, is a Richmond player. And Willie Rioli trying to snatch the ball away and take the free kick. I think it was Short who was under there. And Rioli for Port Adelaide, down to half forward with his kick, comes off the hands and down to the back, and Byrne-Jones immediately taken in a tackle by Dan Rioli for Richmond and forces a ball up right at the top of the 50.
Tossed up. Richmond have the numbers. Trezise gets it out of there. Hoists it up to centre wing. Ryan underneath it. Tallest player out there but couldn't clunk it. Spills down towards Drew. Close to the boundary line. Managed to keep it in, but his kick's a turnover. Straight back to Trezise. And now Baker on the 45. Puts it in the path of Prestia. Good grab and surging by. He'll hand it off in the sidecar to Smith. Beautiful delivery and finds McIntosh 25 out. Straight in front. Richmond with some free-flowing footy.
Wow, how good was that transition then from the Tigers? And I think as that kick set up by Baker, coming back through the middle of the ground, just weighted it beautifully, found his teammate, and then a terrific kick inside forward 50 to find McIntosh. Outstanding play, Tigers. And again, along the theme is they just will not go away, but needs to finish this before the three-quarter time siren.
McIntosh will start at centre half forward. It's been a rough 48 hours for Windows, but McIntosh is having a great night. He's got his first. And the margin's down to 8. 12-10-82 for Port Adelaide. Richmond 11-8-74. 30 minutes into the third term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport over at Cardinia Park. The margin pushing back out. The Bulldogs by 17 over the Cats. Your experts, Kirsty Lamb and Josh Franco here in Adelaide.
You called it well, Josh. It was just really clean ball movement. And when you can go that direct to goals, more often than not, you end up with a set shot. And yeah, it was superb ball movement to go through the middle, take the game on. They need to take the game on if they're going to hang in as much as possible. And yeah, for Canon McIntosh just to go back and slot his first for the night, it keeps him in close contest with Port.
Well, Curvis crashed to ground after the ruck contest. Hopper picked the ball up, tried to get it to centre wing. Wines intercepted, took the bouncing ball, gave it to Drew. He went to half forward to Butters. Oh, I thought he took the mark and the umpire called play on. Crowd not happy. Ralph Smith almost got it. Drew's on the ground. Did he drag it in? No, said the umpire.
Look, I've got to agree with the Port Adelaide faithful. I thought that was a mark every day of the week. And again, they got 4 umpires out there. Someone please make a call.
Offense down to Rosie. Ball caught under the legs of Horn Francis, and eventually the umpire says, let's go again. Closing in on three-quarter time. Richmond just won't go away. Young Richmond side, it must be said. Long injury list of their senior players. Ralph Smith tried to go down to the lead of McIntosh. All he found was Aaliyah coming across with the intercept mark between centre wing and half-back.
The All-Australian backman up to half-forward. Little heavy for Dixon. Cleared the pack. Nankervis was waiting at the arc of defensive 50 for Richmond. Tried to hand it to Smith, and he's buffeted off the ball. That ricochets over the line. So Port by 8. Felt like they were pushing away, and it could be set for a grandstand finish on ABC Sport. Great to have you with us for the call on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Kirsty Lamb, Josh Franco and Josh Muddy here as it's tossed back in. Sweet beats Nankervis, tapped it to Butters. He caught a high bump there from Baker. It was accidental as he jumped trying to paddle off the ball. Port Adelaide get away in the end. Horn Francis to Logan Evans, who stepped off his line, has to rush the entry. High into the 50, Rioli entangled by 2, hits the back, bounces, Dixon with the volley, and it rolls through for a minor score. Butters has popped back up again, but he's had a rough night. Flung to ground by Nankervis, and he's now copped a accidental high one from Baker as Richmond now look to go quickly through the broadcast wing. They're down by 9 points.
McIntosh pushed his man under the ball, but there was support there for Aaliyah, and it came from Wines, who gave him a hand pass. Down to half forward with a kick. Richmond again have some numbers, but they can't get the ball out. Should be a free kick, it is. Butters with the tackle, and he gave it to Short afterwards as well. And again, just outside the 50, you doubt his capacity to kick the distance.
Crossy, he's only got about 7 seconds to make his decision because the siren's about to sound.
And he's decided to go short, and he did it just in time.
Perfection.
Oh, I thought he could have gone a second or two later. So we've crossed over the 34-minute mark of this third quarter. And after the siren, Jason Horn-Francis with a shot at goal.
We talk about big kicks in the context of the game. Margin currently, 9 points. This puts him 15 points up if he kicks a goal. But again, along the theme of Richmond not going away and creating a bit of angst amongst the Port Adelaide faithful, he must go back and kick this to the power.
It's been quite a journey for what is still a very young man. In he comes, kicks from 48 and hooks it. Minor score, and there's a bit of afters too. There's a bit of, no I did, yes you did, what did you say? And they're pushing and a little bit of shoving, but mostly talking. And the sides are still in there, close together, but separate, if you know what I mean. And so they go away to the three-quarter time huddle with a very, very close scoreline that not many who turned up tonight would have expected. Port Adelaide 12-12-84, Richmond 11-8-74.
There's plenty of feeling in this one, Crossy. They've been getting stuck into each other across the night because it's so important. It's a game Port Adelaide had to win, or has to win, as the heavy favourites chasing September action. And Richmond down in the cellar dwellers at 2-15 would love a major scalp to reignite their season. The power by 10, the goal scorers heading into the final change. Doubles to Rosie, Georgiadis and Dixon. Singles to Boak, Willie Rioli, Lord, Francis Evans, Burn Jones and Logan Evans. Meanwhile for the Tigers, 2 to Dan Rioli, 3 to Ryan Mansell. Singles to Prestia, Kajitsky, Bolton, McIntosh, Campbell and Green. Close finish coming your way on ABC Sport. It's power by 10 points on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app.
The road to an Olympics or Paralympics is rarely straightforward. It's filled with pain, pressure and expectations.
The gold is always on my mind.
For me to go to the Olympics would be everything.
Being able to bring home the first ever gold for Australia would be a very, very proud moment for me.
ABC Sports documentary Countdown to Paris follows 5 Australian athletes in their quest to make it to Paris 2024.
I knew straight away that qualifying for Paris was what I wanted to do.
The desire to make an Olympics never goes away.
Countdown to Paris is available to watch now on ABC iView and the ABC News In-Depth channel on YouTube.
This is ABC Sports coverage of the 2024 AFL season. Every match on the ABC Listen app.
Look for the AFL button.
Rolls its way to Rioli, 2 to beat, and he's split them. Parting the seas up towards Lord. Slides in on hands and knees. Releases Burn-Jones. Empty 50. Goes from 60. And Burn-Jones slides it through.
Shea Bolton, any wonders, he'll go out to his right, kick it from about 48, just lays back on the kick and comfortably sends it through for a goal. So the Tigers get one back.
And then smashed forward by Prestia, bashing it with a fist. Boak was waiting on the arc, hands it to Drew, then Houston from 45, screwing it to the behind line, and Dixon's there! Dixon opens the angle and snaps his second. Port Adelaide back up by 13. Up towards the broadcast wing, it bounces favourably for Brown, who gives it to Kajitsky. They want to keep going with the overlap. Up to right half forward. Beautiful work from Mansell. Got past Radaglia. Empty goal square. He can tumble it with a snap from 45. Oh, that is audacious. McIntosh will start at centre half forward. It's been a rough 48 hours for Windows, but McIntosh is having a great night. He's got his first. And the margin's down to 8.
The 2024 AFL Premiership season.
On your radio.
ABC Sport Digital.
And on the ABC Listen app.
A late double up from the Tigers, keeping this a close game at the Adelaide Oval. Port by 10 heading into the final term against Richmond. Both at different ends of the ladder, both with different goals. But what a scalp it would be if Richmond could knock off Port Adelaide at home, the 2-15 Tigers against the 10-7 Power. Great to have your company for Saturday night footy on ABC Sport, wherever you're listening on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app. Aaron Bryans and Neil Cross calling the action to break it all down and preview the final term. Premiership Bulldog Kirsty Lamb and All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco.
Well, it was an interesting quarter again, wasn't it? We spoke about whether Richmond had the capacity to keep with Port Adelaide and whether Port were going to try and wrestle momentum in their way and keep the momentum. But Richmond just keep finding a way to stay involved in this contest. They just keep turning up. They keep pressuring. Contested possession is good for them, and they're there and thereabouts. And Port are going to have to continue to play really good football if they're going to win tonight.
Yeah, and as we've spoken about all night, that full credit to at times Port Adelaide, particularly I reckon in that third quarter, they looked really threatening. They had momentum, they had field position, they were going inside 50, they were getting repeat entries and looking quite dangerous, but to Richmond's credit, they're able to hang on, and when they're scored against, invariably they've been able to respond and kick a major. So once again on the scoreboard, they're able to be within touch. The margin's now 10 points as we start this final quarter, but you just feel that if Richmond can get an early goal and just get their nose in front and apply real scoreboard pressure to Port Adelaide, who knows what can happen. But the first goal of this quarter is critical.
Port's pulled the trigger as well and activated their sub. Josh Money's downstairs.
They have. We'll get to that in a moment, Aaron. Potentially a game-changing development down here. Just in that three-quarter time huddle, Toby Nankervis came away from the huddle and the trainer said to the doctor, he's a bit confused. And we saw a bit of friendly fire towards the end. He's gone down into the room for a concussion test, so that could be a big one. And as you said, Port has made it sub. Ollie Lord out of the game. Quinton Narkle comes in.
I reckon they pulled the trigger immediately. Champion Data has Toby Nankervis blacked out and Tyler Sonsi ready to go. So both subs on. Port by 10. Final term underway. Out of the middle. Bolton caught in the tackle. Got a handball off the deck. Cut off by Logan Evans for the Power. Now Rosé becomes the tackler. Wraps up down. We'll get a ball up close to the attacking edge for Port. They're kicking to the northern end in this final term. Ryan taps it down to Rosie, then Burgoyne. I've got it the wrong way. They're going to the Riverbank stand end, and here they come. Burgoyne up towards the southern end, looking for Rioli. It's spoilt away. Back towards Drew at half forward. Tried their handball off to Dixon. May have caught one high, certainly milking it that way. Burgoyne won't matter. He goes it on his own from 45 and misses to the left. Minor score as Charlie Dixon pops up off the deck, and Port leads by 11.
Quickly, Short brings it in, drops it in short. And Richmond working away to the eastern side of the ground. A little bit of hush over the crowd. The ball goes long out on towards centre wing. Ryan was at the front, couldn't take it. Logan Evans spilled it for Port Adelaide. And umpire comes in after Ryan was tackled, says let's pull it up. They were playing REO Speedwagon's Keep On Loving You at three-quarter time. I tell you what, if Port Adelaide drops this game, I don't think their supporters will be thinking loving thoughts. Georgiades goes high as a scrambled kick came forward, and he's marked it just slightly to the right, to the left of centre. And from inside the centre square, he belts it long about 20 from goal. Dixon with hands in the back, and the umpire says that's a mark. Bolter turns around with hands raised and said, "You got to be kidding."
Well, firstly, the mark from Georgiades was outstanding. Had no right to take possession of that footy and almost marked it on his chest. But then the mark from Charlie Dixon, having a look at the replay, what do you think?
In the back, every day of the week, I think.
Agreed.
If it was the other way around, it would be in the back.
Yeah.
So Dixon comes in from 20 metres out and squeezes the kick in by the narrowest of margins, but nevertheless it's a goal. It's his third of the night. And the big man in his 150th game for Port Adelaide is doing the job in the forward line. And Port Adelaide skips away again, 13-13-91. Richmond 11-8-74.
Well, he goes down on the scoreboard, Kirsty, doesn't it? He kicks the goal, but Port Adelaide faithful, they didn't get too upset about that non-decision then from the umpire with the push in the back. As we saw on the replay, there was two hands. Bolter's momentum went forward, and tell you what, that's a push in the back every day of the week. But again, full credit to Dixon. He's been good. Kicked 3 goals, hasn't had a huge amount of the footy, but has looked threatening throughout the course of the game.
Port by 17. Ryan in the ruck up against Sweet with Nankervis subbed. Butters at the ball drop, caught in the tackle from Dow. Towed it up towards Drew. Hacked it out of there. Quick kick bouncing in the path of Narkle, the sub for Port. With Lord now out. His handball cut off by Smith, but in turn back to Rosie. Back to Narkle from 45. Went for home and missed to the right. And the super sub can't strike just yet. Port by 18 points. 13-14-92 to 11-8-74. 3 minutes into the final term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport.
Short from the kick in. Bolter out on the eastern side in the pocket with the mark. Goes long with his kick towards centre wing. Off hands, looked like it was high on Mansell. The umpire thought differently. Rosie with the tackle, forces a ball up. Still night in Adelaide. Still cold in Adelaide, that's for sure. No doubt about that. So, ball off the ruck contest. Drew tried to come through. No success. Butters got it. Now it comes out in the direction of Rosie. Christie is there as well. Actually picks up the ball, gives it to the umpire. Let's throw it up again on the eastern side.
Ryan in front position, beaten by Sweet, but he tapped it straight out towards Banks on hands and knees. Scrubbed it out towards Burgoyne, hacked it around the body. Dixon trying to paddle it to his own advantage, uses the body to free up Butters, spun a 360 and got the handball into the 50. Smith under a bit of pressure, had 2 to beat. Port win out. Burn-Jones got it out towards Burgoyne, tried to give it back but didn't make the connection with the handball. Rolls its way to Narkle, tight in the pocket. He'll square it up. Rioli got the sit but couldn't quite claim it. Was eyeing off a specky there, and it's off hands and through for a minor score. Port peppering, have had all 4 scoring shots in this final term and are up by 19.
This is Port's move. And Richmond with a kick in. Broad missed his man Rioli. He just tried to go really short, like 20 metres into the back pocket, and sent it out on the full. Narkle in game number 50 of his AFL career with a gift. Can he curl it around the corner for a goal? Narkle round on the right foot, leaves it narrow. Was all set up for him, leaves it narrow. 20 the margin though. That's a game high. Port Adelaide just doing what they have to at this stage.
He's already had an impact too. Narkle just on the ground as the sub. He's had 3 disposals and 2 shots on goal.
Jaden Short wants to go for Richmond. Launching it to the broadcast wing. Aaliyah floating across from the side. Gives Port the outnumber. Bolton realises and slides in to knock it over the boundary line. Inaccuracy rearing its ugly head again for the home side. 13-16, or 13-15 rather.
Which is about their average.
Richmond, meanwhile, still in the hunt. 2-15 for the year, the Tigers, but consistently taking it up to sides above them, which is everybody. Toss back in, Ryan knocks it down. He's wrapped up in the tackle from Sweet. I think in comparison to the West Coast Eagles of years prior, they just aren't getting demolished like a bottom side, as we've seen in the past, Richmond. Toss back in off a couple of hands. Smith got out of a phone box there as he weaves through traffic. Sends Richmond up to half forward. McIntosh in front, brought it down. Fell towards Kajitsky and he's caught in the tackle. Didn't realise Houston was shadowing him. Dropped the footy and here come the power. Zerk Thatcher into the centre square. Mead decides to relent and retreats back towards Logan Evans. The switch through to the outer side and Burgoyne has it at left half back.
Just drops it over the top. And Burne-Jones found a bit of space. Now he's holding up. Nothing clearly available. Now there comes the lead and Burgoyne gets the shortest of kicks. Marks ahead of short. Plays on now near the logo on centre wing. Inside of the foot. Goes straight towards the boundary line. Willie Rioli, good clean hands. Hand pass inside for Mead. He drops it about 13 metres and the umpire says that's a mark. Georgiades sliding in and taking it. Looked very short, that pass.
Well, at the moment, Port Adelaide started this fourth quarter superbly. They're looking very ominous. Inside 56 zip. Smashing Richmond in contested ball, uncontested possession. Ground ball gets some clearances. So at the moment, it's all the power. They just need to be able to hit the scoreboard and convert.
Georgiades setting up. He's gone all the way back to the 50. Now he's making his way in slowly. It's a complaint from Richmond players that perhaps he wasn't on his angle. And he sprays the ball across the goals for the minor score. So Port Adelaide 13-16-94, Richmond 11-8-74, 8 minutes down, final quarter. Josh Money on the boundary.
Crossy, Connor Rosie's come to the bench in a fair amount of pain. Looks like he copped a knee to the hip. Hopefully just a corky for the Port Adelaide captain, but I'll keep you posted.
Dan Rioli sends it to the outer wing for Richmond. Off the pack, Baker hands it to Brown and now Banks close to the boundary line. Screws it, bouncing ball through the logo on centre wing. It didn't work for Steely Green. Aaliyah at the back can hand it to Butters for the power. He chips it up towards Francis Evans, just behind the centre circle. Looking for options, and Bergman charging behind in the end. Will head to the broadcast wing. Composed to Williams. Down the line to Wine, strong in the end. Nearly claimed it. Had enough of the footy for a while before Broad cut him off with the arm. Hits the deck and the umpire's going to say ball up.
That might be the square up for the Dixon pushing the back.
Close to right half forward for the power. Sweet wins it down. Mead head over the footy, wrapped up by Ralph Smith and lost it, and it rolls over the boundary line once again. The Tigers 3-14 in final terms. It's their worst quarter, and at the moment they are backing that up with the form so far. Yet to have a scoring shot.
Yet to go inside 50, Aaron.
Down by 20 in front of 27,704 tonight. A cold evening in Adelaide, but again below 30,000 for the Power faithful.
So ruck infringement spotted there. It'll come back for Sweet for Port Adelaide to go forward. So they're at right half forward. Sweet taking his time, taking his sweet time. Now he drives it into the 25-metre zone. Straight off hands, Mead picked it up, tried to find Narkle, no success there. On the ground, Dan Rioli over the ball, plenty around him. Umpire says, ball it up.
Hey, Crossy, that's the hole that Nankervis leaves. He's gone off the ground. Hit outs this quarter, 7-2, Port Adelaide's way. Clearance is 5-1, Power's way.
Here's a clearance for Narkle. He's onto the ball. Oh, and for the third time in the final quarter, he's unable to sneak it through. That time he rolled it behind the Richmond player who was in the last line of defence, but he just rolled it too far across the goal face. And Dan Rioli runs away very gingerly. I think he might have a problem with his hamstring. Meanwhile, Richmond back into play.
1-5 in the final term, the Power. Haven't closed the door just yet. Radonolea got to sit the booster seat but couldn't claim it. Spills down towards Green, up to the 50, off hands. The race is on. Charging across, Bergman slid in. Beautiful courage. Put his body on the line in the one-on-one and popped up with the footy with the clearing kick as well to the broadcast wing. Mead down the line for Port Adelaide, and Horne-Francis is there. The counter punch is slick and smooth. Horne-Francis opens the angle, sends it inside 50, but Dixon slips over on the lead out. Won't matter. At the back, Georgiadis bowled over. Richmond get out of there. Prestia to Sonsi, the sub for the Tigers, heads to the broadcast wing, winds underneath it, crunched by Rioli. That's Dan, gathers and gives it off to Hopper. Now McIntosh for Richmond. He slips over, Bergman doesn't. Gives it to Butters, looks inside, and an excellent kick on the 45 to Narkle. Port by 21 and on the charge.
Charging pass was Houston. Received the hand pass from Narkle, dropped it inside 50. Francis Evans wide out within 10 metres of the boundary. But they're not that deep, the pockets here at the Adelaide Oval. He's got a good look at the goal face.
And Narkle's been outstanding. As we said, he's come on in this last quarter as the sub. He's had 5 disposals, 3 shots on goal for 3 points, and was influential in that bit of play again.
Francis Evans crouching over the ball. Has one for this evening, drops it in short rather than taking the shot at goal, and Georgiadis with a mark in the forward pocket, and he's got plenty of angle to work with. He's going to have to go back surely narrower from where the umpires set him at the moment. He's been fortuitous, let's say, in how that angle's been calculated. He's got a bit more of an open look than I thought initially he would have.
I'll tell you what, the kick from Francis Evans was outstanding once again. He had the one-on-one Georgiadis v Broad, just kicked it to the advantage of Georgiadis, and he was able to show great forward craft.
Georgiadis just quietly took another step to his left before he came in, and then he sunk the goal. Never looked like missing. 3-4, Georgiadis. Port Adelaide really put a gap in it now. They break the 100 here at the Oval. 14-17-101. Richmond 11-8-74. We're about halfway through the final term. Down to Josh Money on the boundary.
Yeah, Connor Rozee is now gone to the Port Adelaide rooms. You'd think 4 goals up. It's unlikely we see him again tonight. He's had his back heavily strapped. Certainly, concern will now be the Red Hot Blues in Melbourne next week for Connor Rozee. So that certainly will be one to watch during the week.
7th time this season, Port raised the bat. But the crowd numbers, as I mentioned before, are starting to dwindle. So over the last 3 home games, we've gone steadily down, and 27,000 is the lowest this season for Port, which is surprising considering we're closing in on finals. But the fans in attendance are happy. Port's up 27 and out of the middle. Sweets tapped it straight to Butters, who can chip it wide to Mead. Bit more control now from this finals contender against the current Wooden Spooners, and Mead will go wide to Drew, centre wing broadcast side. Up to right half forward he goes, and strong in the one-on-one is Wines. Takes the mark, hands it to Horne-Francis. Wormburner into the 50. Ugly delivery, rolls straight to Bolter. He can hand it off. Banks puts on the Jets out of half back. Eyes McIntosh in a one-on-one, who pushes off Zerk Thatcher and breaks away. Takes a bounce. McIntosh from 45 misses to the right-hand side. And the veteran, 2-time premiership Tiger can't cap off the night with a highlight. 26 points the deficit. 14-17-101 Port to Richmond 11-9-75. Still 9 to play. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Premiership Bulldog Kirsty Lamb, and All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco with you.
And it'll be Logan Evans to take the ball into the scoreboard pocket there. Zerk Thatcher waits and then gives it back to Evans, who drops it out to centre wing. Bergman bravely back with a fight. Noah Bolter coming heavily at him. Takes the mark though. Bergman now called to play on. Decides to retreat back in to the top of the defensive 50. Aaliyah is standing there. Can go wider to Radonolea.
know they're all about control right now, the Power, but the live ladder is quite important. Geelong's losing to the Western Bulldogs and the margin is pushed out, so it's 29 points. Currently, the Cats are in the top 4 and Port's behind them by 3%. So if they can get some more scores on the board, they can close that gap and possibly find their way towards the top end of the ladder. The Power went long down the line and it's cut off by Richmond at left half back. And the mark's been taken here by Ben Miller. Looking for options, he'll head through the logo, spears it. Green looked lively the past fortnight in this Richmond lineup. Inside he goes to Hopper. Doesn't know where to go and finally just forced to move it as the whistle sounds. High, booming kick to the 50. Bolton launched, almost caught him on the hops with the pogo stick. Spilled down towards Brown. Kick smothered by Sweet. Port have the numbers. Butters caught in a tackle, got a handball out. Francis Evans now to Narkle, racing through the broadcast wing. Turning and going is Boak, the veteran, putting it in the path of Georgiadis. It's open territory, just needs some backspin and he won't get it. Rolling and rolling, it carries over the boundary line. Right forward pocket, Riverbank stand end. Port by 26 points.
Quite a clever kick by Travis Boak. He didn't have a lot of options other than two, 1v1s up forward, but to at least put it out into space and create a stoppage inside forward 50. You want to see your forwards on the move here.
Ball back into play. Ruckman negate each other. Oh, Rioli was through there and dropped the ball in the tackle. He felt contact. He looked like he was suffering some sort of back problem there, the way he just didn't seem to know what he wanted to do, and in the end took a swipe at the ball and missed it as he was tackled by Travis Boak. Umpire said that's a free kick. Travis Boak backs up, 45-degree angle, maybe a little less severe than that.
What's his scoring this year?
113 it was.
113.
But he's had one tonight.
So it was 114 and now it's 115. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I think that's his second behind of the night. So if we're trying to do the quick maths, I reckon it's 2:15.
No, there's going to be a score review here, I think.
Look, it's bad.
It's going to be a score review. This might save Travis Boak, maybe a few blushes.
So 1-1 for the night. He currently sits at 2:14.
Okay.
And depending on whatever this will be, could be 2:15.
Just wait on, we're going to review. And what's happened on the line, it would be Sweet, or maybe Georgiades trying to keep the ball in place. Sweet it is, who's come from behind. So the ball's definitely crossed the line. Has it on the way through hit the behind post? I think it has hit the behind post after it's been punched from behind the line. So it should be a minor score. After all that. Behinds are important, not so much in this match, but certainly for the record of Travis Boak. Well, what did we decide in the end? 2:15 this season for Boak.
They have paid it to him, so 2:15 it is. Richmond have got to go. Down by 27. Long kick up to Bolter, broadcast swing. Monster as he smashes it towards left half forward. So penetrating as he gets it up towards Mansell. Looks inside, swinging, kicking, Bergman floated in the hole. None of the Richmond attackers could get any chance at it, just held up by their opponents, and he cuts it off for Port Adelaide. Bergman with a short pass to the right back pocket to Wines. Brownlow medalist, happy to take his time. And I'll switch through defensive 50. Logan Evans' kick is poor though, wide of Mead. Seth Campbell can pounce. This young Tiger hooks it up towards the goal square, should have gone for home. And Wines was waiting there. Back where it started, he'll cut it off for Port Adelaide. And pop it short in front of the scoreboard to Bergman again.
Miles Bergman, considering options, decided to keep it low and hard, looking for Sweet, who was off hands. Kajitsky with a hand pass out. And having to force the ball forward in the end was Smith, close to the boundary line. They keep it in Richmond. Kajitsky slipped a hand pass to Rioli. Inboard the hand pass. And then finally a blazing shot that goes out on the full came there from Campbell as he was going to ground and under pressure. So Port Adelaide now in the back pocket again. Logan Evans has come back into play. The umpire hasn't called play on. Now he does. He'll send it down this broadcast side.
Up to a pack, and Wines in front position. Didn't have an opponent. Everyone else was entangled, and he takes the uncontested grab. Down the line he goes. Francis Evans to Travis Boak. One-on-one. Willerioli. Put it on his head. And he bounces off Nathan Broad with the bodywork to take the mark. 20 out, 45-degree angle to the right.
Probably one position you don't want to be in is a one-on-one v Willie Rioli when there's space and there's speed on the ball. And it was a terrific kick. I think it was Travis Spoke kicking it inside forward 50, just kicked it to the advantage, and Willie Rioli, again, great forward craft, just did the rest.
Back in the side after 2 months, and boy have they missed him. Willie Rioli has 2, and Port Adelaide are surging away. 33 points their lead. As we close in on full time, it's a mirror image of what's happening at Cardinia as well. The Bulldogs demolishing the Cats now. They're up by 40. And the live ladder, as it sits, has Port 5th by 1%. Closing in on Geelong, so every score will count. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Your experts, All-Australians Kirsty Lamb and Josh Franco.
It was a really good build-up by Port Adelaide, and what I loved about it was Ollie Wines standing his ground in what was a bit of a packed mark and not the tallest player in it, but to take a really strong overhead mark and then just get the ball going forward, and it results in a goal.
Back in the middle, and Mead couldn't get a clean disposal away. Bolton, hand pass wasn't great. Prestia, his hand pass wasn't great either. They're at half back. Smith comes away. Drops it in short. Jasai's takes his time. He goes out to Miller. Down the line with his kick, intercepted by Narkle. As Josh Franco said, he's had an impact on the game. It's a Port Adelaide that likes to say he's an impact player, whoever is the substitute. So 7 possessions. It's in the hands of Burgoyne now. He drops the ball in short. Mead at left half forward. Taking his time, Port Adelaide well in control now. It took every bit of 3 quarters. Kick dropped in high to Charlie Dixon. He took a 2-grabber. And Dixon will go back and shoot for his 4th goal of the evening. And this is turning into a romp this final quarter from the power.
And Aaron, just to put you on the spot here, what was that statistic you said about Richmond's last quarters?
3 and 14.
3 and 14, yeah. And that's symptomatic. They're a young side, they're a developing side. They've thrown everything at Port Adelaide for the first 3 quarters, but they've just run out of petrol tickets.
Charlie Dixon leans back on the kick, punches the air, happy with that. Has his 4th of the evening. So 4 goals for Dixon. And Port Adelaide careering away now. 16-18, 114 plays Richmond's 11-9-75. The contest has been over for some time. 39 the margin for the power. It's really blown out in this final term after they were only up by 10 points at 3/4 time.
And Crossy touched on it earlier this quarter. When you lose Nankervis, your skipper, and I guess your sort of heartbeat in the middle of the ground, it makes it really challenging, and the statistics support that. It's been a total annihilation or domination from Port Adelaide in this final term. 13-5 inside 50s. The clearance count 8-2. Disposal count 79-50. So it's all Port Adelaide.
A flat end for a competitive Richmond outfit here at the Adelaide Oval. 39 points. High bounce in the middle. Sweet wins it down. Dow was there for Richmond. And set upon by numerous power midfielders. He's brought to ground. Score check at Cardinia. Dogs by 46. Sweet down to Drew. Fists it high up and under. Through the centre circle. Butters can tap it forward. Ricochets in the path of Dan Rioli. Defensive edge of the square for the Tigers. Hands it to Short. Low and hard through centre wing. Here's Brown. Floating forward the last few weeks, but was drafted as a defender. Sends it towards the 50. 3-on-3. Logan Evans. Strong to cut it off against Jacob Kajitsky. And Kajitsky didn't move back to where the mark was supposed to be. Not really his fault either. He was kind of cleaned up in that mark and was on his haunches being told to step back. He's been pinged for 50. Here come Port. Logan Evans over the top. Ollie Wines at left half forward. Richmond caught napping. They're jogging back here. Wines will head it into the pocket. Horn Francis is all alone. Has to be perfect. And he marks it bang on the boundary line. Is it over? They've given it to Richmond. No sense of occasion. Free kick to the visitors. Down by 39.
Noah Bolter looked back centrally, decided just to keep it down the line. And Burgoyne almost took it away to get a free kick. And Trezai's forced to give it up, so Burgoyne drops it over the top, just the regulation 15 metres to Wines, who's outside 50 at left half forward.
He's had a cracking game, Ollie Wines, right from the get-go.
Round on the right foot, drops it 25 from goal. Through came Sweet, almost took it. And now Burn-Jones with a tackle. And the umpire says, take him over the line. Yep, throw it in.
Life ladder check. Port outside the top 4 by 0.9%. Still enough time, 2 minutes to go. Need the Dogs to put a couple on the Cats and Port to get a couple here. Toss back in, they're inside 50. Sweet paddled it down. Butters got it to Drew. Low straight to Banks. His kick about 10 metres. Cut off by the Tigers, and Banks will go to the outer side. Mansell outside of the boot. Down the line he goes, looking for McIntosh. Bounce favourably for him. Gathers, he's darting and weeding. No idea where he wants to go, and in the end looks inside. Finds Jacob Hopper, who's been prolific tonight. Into the 50, too high for Ralph Smith. Radonalea at the back. Hands it to Walia. Now Boak. Back to the broadcast wing. The outnumber. Richmond have the advantage. Port Adelaide fighting, though, through Georgiadis. Wrapped up by Smith. And Miller wins out. His handball smothered, though. Dixon charging out of the attacking 50 to apply some assistance. And the Port faithful reward him as well with some applause. Port Adelaide by 39. Boundary throw-in to come in front of the benches.
Quick interchange to give Seth Campbell another run for Richmond. Has the ball thrown back into play. Sweet had the better of the ruck contest. Then Boak, brilliant little hand pass, slipped to Drew down to half forward with a kick. Noah Bolter comes across, takes it and immediately flares it straight across the ground. A high kick, just hung in the air for short. Burn-Jones pressured him. Ball on the ground, picked up by Burgoyne. Inside 50, Willie Rioli in the left forward pocket. He's got another opportunity to shoot at goal.
Willie Rioli, he's only had the 7 disposals, lining up for his 8th. He's kicked 2 goals, 1, and has been influential.
2 goals, 2 now. And he hooked it across the body, Rioli, and missed narrow.
He's looked very threatening tonight, I reckon, at times, Rioli.
So that minus score means it's a 40-point game in favour of Port Adelaide. Real turnaround in the final quarter. They've hit some better form. I won't say their best.
They've been given a gift here. Bolter, laconic as he tried to exit defensive 50 and hits up Quinton Narkle, who was all alone. Just a misguided kick. And the super sub for Port will get a set shot. 45-degree angle to the right. Will the siren ever stop? Quinton Narkle's trying to take his set shot to determine the margin. And it will be a minus score. The Power faithful not happy with the circumstances around it, but very pleased with the result. The Power surge home to claim an important 4 points ahead of a treacherous run to September. They defeat the Tigers by 41 points. 16-20-116 to Richmond's 11-9, 75. Eagles 8 to 1 behind in that final term. Blew out what was a close margin for a majority of the game. Port by 5 at quarter time, 8 at the half, and 10 at three-quarter time. Ultimately winners by 41 points. Charlie Dixon had 4, Mitch Georgiadis 3, 2 to Rosie, Rioli, and singles to Boat, Lord, Evans, Burn-Jones, and Logan Evans, so Francis on the board as well. Port's win streak over Richmond extends to 4. They've got their 11th victory of the campaign and will find themselves just outside the top 4 on percentage to conclude this Saturday night fixture. Port winners in front of 27,704, their lowest home crowd of the season, but they won't mind as they close in on September. 41 points the victors, and over at Cardinia Park, the Western Bulldogs defeated the Cats by 47. So the official difference between Geelong and Port that separates the top 4 is 0.8%. We've still got a couple of games to play. Obviously Brisbane and the Swans tomorrow. If the Lions get that done, they could jump in. Fremantle could also topple the Cats if they beat Melbourne, so plenty still to play out across the weekend. But Port Adelaide in the hunt for September once again after stumbling on the Gold Coast last weekend. Richmond moved to 2-16 and edged closer to an 8th wooden spoon. They haven't finished last since 2007, but the same old story for the Tigers. Competitive for 3 terms and then falling away late. Plenty of analysis coming your way. We're with you for the next 45 minutes. So we'll head into both rooms. We'll get the songs as well. And of course, you can get in touch on the text line. 0437 774 774. That's 0437 774 774. To wrap it all up, our superstar experts, Premiership Bulldog Kirsty Lamb, 4-time Showdown medalist Josh Franco, and team, we probably got a better game than we expected.
Yeah, we certainly did. I mean, we spoke from the top. We wondered what Port Adelaide was going to turn up tonight and how long Richmond were going to be able to stay in the game. And yeah, as you said, they were able to stay in it for 3 quarters, which has sort of been a little bit of the story of their season. But they were super competitive. I think there's a lot of learnings from Richmond, a lot of positives to come out of the game for them. But good for Port Adelaide to stick at it, to stick with their system that they've currently been playing with and run away with a pretty convincing win in the end.
Absolutely. Christy, I think at the end as well, if you've just tuned in or you've just seen the score, probably doesn't sum up how competitive it was throughout the course of the night. And I suppose if you look at the numbers overall, statistically, they're well in favour of Port Adelaide. So just going through some of the numbers, the tackle count, Port Adelaide were plus 23. The contested possessions in the end, Port Adelaide dominated in that area of the game as well as the ground ball gets. The clearances, Port Adelaide were plus 16. The inside 50s, Port Adelaide again were plus 20. The hit-outs dominated by Port Adelaide. So if you looked at it purely statistically, and a lot of those numbers came off the back of the last quarter when Port Adelaide were totally dominant and in control of this game. But as we said throughout the course of the game and throughout the call, that Richmond actually just wouldn't go away for 3 quarters. I think the margin was 10 points at 3-quarter time. They were well within striking distance of Port Adelaide. Somehow they had to manufacture or try to hit the scoreboard early and get their nose in front, but they were unable to do that. And it is symptomatic, I guess, of a young side, a young developing side that has a lot of inexperienced players in their side. It is symptomatic of that when you can throw everything, including the kitchen sink at a side that's vying for a top 4 spot. But in the end, you just run out of petrol tickets, as the Tigers did in that last quarter. So overall, I think Port Adelaide would be pretty happy with their performance, albeit, getting a little bit of a scare at times throughout the first 3 quarters. But I'm sure the coaching staff, Ken Inkley and the playing group would be pretty satisfied with the 4 points and the margin in the end.
The knock on them has always been that a bit of a flat track bully, Port Adelaide, and they've been labelled this fake top 4 side. And I guess the only way to really answer that tonight, given it was playing against the likely wooden spooners, was to demolish them. And they did that in the final quarter, but Richmond put up a pretty good fight for 3 terms, and is that more symbolic of Richmond's fight or Port Adelaide not really flexing their muscles and showcasing what they can do?
Look, I think it's a bit of a lot of the Richmond fight. I thought they were outstanding for 3 quarters, and we talk about mentality and the job ahead of Adam Uze in charge of Richmond, and he's obviously got them to a point where they can compete with the better sides for periods of a game, and they showed that again tonight. I must admit, right from the start of the call, I thought it was going to be a Port Adelaide demolition, and we even mentioned it at half-time that you can go into these games, and having been there when your side's humming along and you're playing a bottom side or one of the lower-ranked sides, you go in 3/4 time and think, what, this shouldn't be happening. We should be miles ahead of this mob. So potentially, to your point, Aaron, it's a bit of both. That Port Adelaide could have flexed their muscles like they did in the last quarter, but that's probably taking a bit away from Richmond, who I thought were pretty good.
Well, the context of it, Ken Hinkley spraying his midfield group at quarter time, clearly frustrated about how they were performing against an inexperienced trifecta. So maybe they didn't showcase or strut their stuff against a lesser opponent, Kirsty.
Yeah, and I think it shows that, particularly if you cop a spray from your coach, the reason you do that is because you want some sort of reaction from your playing group. And you could say that they've done that because they've obviously come away with a win. But I tend to agree with you a little bit around Richmond played a really competitive brand of football tonight, and if Port are going to finish in the top 8, then that's the sort of football that you're going to expect to play in finals. You're probably going to come up against teams that are going to do it for more consistently for longer. But yeah, certainly, I think Ken and the boys will be happy to take the 4 points, that's for sure.
Port winners by 41 points at the Adelaide Oval. Plenty of reactions coming your way. But let's head into the rooms. Josh Money standing by.
Yeah, relieved group making their way into the Port Adelaide rooms. A proper slog for the first 3 quarters, with the final term a bit more in line with what we were expecting. But with arguably the toughest run home in football, they just had to win tonight. And in the end, they've won pretty comfortably. And it will be vital, I dare say, in the run home to September. Mitch Georgiades up and about after missing out last week through suspension. Bit of jostling and we're ready to go. Few guest stars in that team song. Sully from the media team, who's a fan favourite. The boys are getting around him, and Alira Lee's very cute son as well. We'll be back with an interview shortly.
So they just got the job done. Port Adelaide, as Josh alluded, so 41-point winners. They just had to nab the 4 points against Richmond ahead of what's going to be a very tough run home. So Carlton next weekend, Friday night away. Then Sydney, Melbourne, the Showdown and Fremantle. So the next 5 weeks, they're going to really see what Port has to offer, because it's make or break across this final month of footy. And Richmond, meanwhile, they've got Collingwood next weekend, which suddenly looks like a game they could possibly pip if they play the brand of football they did tonight. Collingwood smashed by 66 earlier today against the Hawks.
And I think even going back to Port Adelaide, I think one of the real concerns is their kicking in front of goal and their accuracy. They're ranked 18th in the competition. You play the good sides, they make you pay. So that would be a concern. Again, they've kicked 20 points tonight, 16 goals, 20. They've had 46 scoring shots. So, again, looking at that, you think they should have absolutely demolished the Tigers, but some inaccurate kicking in front of goal, which they need to continually look at getting better.
16 of their 18 games, double-digit behinds.
It's a worry.
It's a pretty obvious trend, isn't it? It's just happening consistently.
And not just this year either. That was what we saw last year as well. So, yeah, there definitely would be some concerns with that.
Just on the forward line, so Ollie Lord was a confirmed tactical sub towards the end, and the last quarter, Port Adelaide completely ran over them. But how did you find the structure when he was in and when he was out? Because Charlie Dixon looked much better, 4 goals at the end of the night. Willie Rioli certainly added a lot of spark. Mitch Georgiades with 3. No Marshall, no Finlayson tonight. How did you like this new mix?
I didn't mind it. I think the reality is like you're missing some of your best players out of that forward line. But at the same time, you've got to make do with the players that you've got on your list. I like Willie Rioli coming back into it. He provides a little bit of spark, a little bit of flair up there that we probably haven't seen for the last sort of month of football. I think when your midfield can sort of push down there and hit the scoreboard a little bit as well, that helps, and that certainly happened tonight. So I don't mind the look that they've got at the moment. What I do think we need to do going forward is you can't keep playing this, just bomb it to the goal square and hope for the best. Like, you've got to have more avenues than just one inside forward 50, particularly if you're going to be competitive come finals.
Which is the trap that they fall into with Charlie Dixon, that sometimes it was just put it on his head, and they're almost starting to learn about life without him. He did play out there tonight, but because he's missed so much footy, they've had to navigate a new game plan.
So is that the problem, though, with the goal kicking, is that it's symptomatic of the personnel and the way they the way they enter the forward area, is that they end up with wide shots or hacked shots or long shots that are close to the line and knocked through for behinds, or rather than saying, well, actually, no, they're just shocking in front of goal.
Look, I think there's an element of truth to that. I'd like to see their sort of heat map of where they're taking their shots from. But I think in the end, because it's so consistent, that there is definitely an issue there in terms of their kicking accuracy or inaccuracy. You talk about the forward line. I thought that obviously a little bit smaller when Lord went off. Normally they've got a couple of tools, plus they got Georgiades. But having Lord go off and getting subbed and then looking a little bit smaller ahead of the ball. One interesting stat that really stood out for me is their tackles inside forward 50. Now, I know they got a lot of repeat entries where there's a lot of density around the footy, but it was 16 tackles inside their forward 50 tonight, which is a pretty big number in terms of your ability to tackle and keep pressure on the ball and lock the ball in your forward 50. So I think from that perspective it looks good. But again, I guess if you're relying on a Charlie Dixon to kick bags every week, then that's not going to cut it.
Where's your level of faith then, in terms of what Port Adelaide can do in the last 5 weeks of the season versus what they can do come the finals?
Are you talking purely
on where they're at the moment? What's your level of faith that they can make a real progress through September?
My real concern for Port Adelaide is when they're really challenged, when the expectation's there and they're really challenged both defensively and physically, I'm a little bit concerned about whether they can cope with that. The other thing that really worries me as well, and you don't get exposed to the level you do, against the better sides when you play the lesser ranked sides, is just how aggressive they are with their ball movement. They are super aggressive. And you see kick come off. We saw it a couple of weeks ago against the Western Bulldogs. And it still looks fine and looks sexy and fantastic. But against the better sides that can defend those risky kicks and then get you on the counter-attack, that's a bit of a concern for me as well.
Being inside the four walls of a coaching group as well at your time at the Swans and the Suns, Josh, you would have known, I guess, how much time you get for opposition analysis, right? So for Carlton, who play Port Adelaide on Friday night, they'd know that they're starting to do these 45 dangerous kicks, right?
Yep.
But they'd be prepared defensively to set up for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100% they would. And I even, when you say that, I go back to the time at the Sydney Swans and how defensively minded John Longmire was. And the reason why Sydney was so successful is when they had momentum against them, they were able to defend really well and they played low-risk footy, so the scoreboard wouldn't get away from them. So when they did have momentum, they had middling number 23 up the front that could turn the game on its head. When they did get momentum, they were able to score and score quickly. But everyone knows Port Adelaide play an aggressive brand. They openly talk about how they want to be aggressive. And as I said, when it comes off, it looks magnificent. And it's really hard to defend. But you know what? All these sides, the better sides, the top 8 sides, come finals time, they'll be saying just clog the corridor. Port Adelaide, it's in their DNA. They won't be able to change. And that's what worries me.
Nice to see at least the depth shining as well for Port Adelaide, and especially the veterans tonight. So Ollie Wines had an absolutely prolific game. I don't want to interrupt or impact your votes, but 32 touches.
He was outstanding.
14 contested, 12 ground balls, 4 clearances. Butters had 28. Travis Boak with 24 again. Just continues to shine, whether it's 3 out of every 4 or even 2 out of every 4. Like he's constantly still bobbing up at 35 years of age and, being a game changer.
I'll tell you the one that's really impressed me, though, is Logan Evans. I thought he was outstanding. I thought he was outstanding tonight. Not just a good game. I thought he played a superb game. He looks really composed with ball in hand. He looks like he's been playing footy for AFL for 10 years.
I had to double check this, and I looked at it. Norwood, number 12, mid-season, 24. It's like they haven't picked him out of nowhere. They had him playing for them in the SANFL, but they clearly saw something.
Absolutely, they did. Yeah. Well, he was an unknown, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's been playing in the sample for quite a bit of time, and from what I've heard, Ken's had some conversations with him in the lead up to this season and what they wanted to see from him in sample, and it's paid off for him because he's playing some terrific footy.
They were so hot on him that he was injured at the time they drafted him in the mid-season draft because they knew that he was going to be special, and then to the point where by the time he came back from that injury, I think he played 2 games and was rushed into the senior side. So you're right, Kirsty. Ken knew exactly what he was getting, and that's a testament to Jason Cripps as well, the list manager, that they can clearly scout that talent.
I must admit, it also begs the question, and I don't know the answer to this, but it begs the question, how many other Logan Evanses are running around in the sample and the waffle and the VFL? Maybe not many. Maybe he just one out the box that people have missed, but how old's Logan Evans at the moment?
18.
Yeah, so
I'm pretty sure, I'll check this again, but he was a touted first-round pick at one point and then was overlooked, I think, due to injury. He was on the radar for a while.
Well, that's a little bit different, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like he's gone missing for a couple of years. And all
Came
of
out
a sudden,
of nowhere.
It was never on anyone's radar, and all of a sudden they just plucked him back.
Marlon Pickett, that was his situation, wasn't it? He was all sorts of things, and then he got an opportunity, and, well, the rest is history for him.
So many individual performances across the night, but as a team, Port Adelaide rolling home with the massive final quarter. So 4 goals, 8 to 1 behind, and win by 41 points after being up by 10 at three-quarter time. It moves them to 11-7 after knocking off Richmond tonight, and Carlton on Friday night is set to really kickstart a fun run home for the Power where we get to test their mettle. Let's head into the rooms for some reaction. Josh Money's down in the Power rooms.
Thank you, Aaron. Another impressive night for Dan Houston. He has a lot of them these days. Dan, how did you see the contest? A bit of a slog for the first 3 quarters, but then really were able to break away to run home strong.
Yeah, I think with the conditions we had over the last 2 days, we knew it was going to be wet, and it brings in a very contested game, and Richmond matched us and seemed to kick a goal every time we did. So we went back and forth for a bit, and then I think we broke it in the third quarter there, where we were able to get a run on and goals, and then carried on into the last, and able to get the win, which was good.
How much do you read into having to battle like that against a team that's 18th on the ladder? Is that something that concerns you at this stage of the season? Is it just about winning any way you can?
Yeah, we'll take absolutely any win we can. I think it shows how even the competition is. We know we've got to be on our A game, and if we drop, we allow teams in, and I thought we dropped a little bit in the first and allowed them a few easy goals, but we're able to bounce back, and we'll take any win we can, and a little bit of a percentage booster too, which is nice.
Do you know what happened to your skipper? He didn't finish the game. It looked like a bit of a knee to the ribs or kidneys or something. Is he okay?
Yeah, I think it was a knee to the hip. So I saw him at one stage throughout the game, and he said he got a knee to the hip. So I think that's quite painful. It was just precautionary, and having a 6-day break, I think once we got ahead, we were able to take Connor out as a precaution.
Can you talk us through the makeup of that back 6 or 7? A lot of talk about when Asava's in the team and you play 3 tools versus just the 2. Do you have a read yet on what works best for you guys?
Not really. I think we've shown our tools have been able to play really well when we've had 2, and then we had Asava come back in with a few injuries down back this week, and we were able to still hold very strong. So I think it's a week-to-week thing, and we'll play our backline who's best in form, not because if we want to play 3 tools or 2 tools. I think whoever's in form gets a look at it.
I know you've said repeatedly this week that you love Port Adelaide and you're not going anywhere, but when you have to deal with external stuff like that and there's talking of moving home, I'm sure your phone's blowing up with family and friends saying what's going on. How much does that interrupt your preparation as an athlete when you're trying to prepare for a game?
It doesn't interrupt at all. I know there's stuff going on, but there's always noise around your performance and stuff like that as well too. And I try and keep away from that stuff and focus on what I can do. And once I'm on the ground, I'm just playing footy and I'm thinking about footy and the game and how I can be the best teammate. So it doesn't impact me at all. I do hear it, but I'm here to play footy, and that's what I love to do. And out there, it doesn't impact me at all.
I'll throw you up to the box.
Dan, congratulations on the win and your game this evening. Just a quick question. Obviously, you may not be able to answer this because I understand that a fair bit's going on throughout the course of a game, but you talked about the best mix with your back 6. How do you think, as a defender with a good view of the forward and the front half of the ground, how did you think the forward line looked just a little bit smaller, especially when Ollie Lord got subbed off?
Yeah, I think with how wet it was, I think the ball was going on the floor a lot. So I didn't think there was a huge need for heaps of tools, and having the flexibility to be able to sub Lordo out and put a small one, definitely helped. It's hard for me to comment on because I'm focusing on my area, but I feel like if the ball's on the floor and we got smalls there, it's always going to be a good thing. And Charlie provided a good contest. Mitch was awesome, so it allows our smalls to go to work a little bit more.
Absolutely. And just another quick question as well, in terms of, I guess your impact on the game and the way that Port Adelaide like to play. We've just spoken about it before we came on air with you for this interview, but obviously it's in your DNA to be aggressive and play corridor as much as you possibly can. Do you feel it sometimes it just gets to a tipping point, or you tip over the edge and you're just too aggressive and potentially open yourself up for a turnover and a goal against on the rebound?
Yeah, definitely. I think, it's hard to put rules around how we want to play, but we want to take the corridor and we back our players in if they see something to hit it. And, we've got to be defensively sound to allow that. And I think, there was obviously a few times this week and last week where we have gone for the corridor, not quite got it, and teams have been able to score. So it's something we're working on and trying to tinker each week. And we want to play aggressive, good footy. But we also need to work out that if we are going to do that, we do need to be defensively sound. And, occasionally it does open us up, but then I feel like we go the length of the ground a fair few times too.
Yeah.
Dan Houston's with us on ABC Sport after Port Adelaide's 41-point victory. Dan, it was a pretty impressive result in that final quarter. Can you tell us, I guess, about the shift of why you kind of ran over Richmond? Did you sense anything different between the first three and the final quarters? I
felt like their mids got on top of our mids, in that first half. Not with, just with work rate and getting contest to contest and then being able to surge the ball forward. And once we were able to adjust that in the second half, I felt like we were able to match them and then overrun them a little bit, and then we got the ball going forward, which I think was where the game was won, in that second half. How handy is it when you've got a veteran like Travis Boak playing his 363rd game and he's still delivering like he's, the polishing new toy at Port Adelaide. He's dropped 24 touches tonight, and you're talking about those superstars that are leading the charge through the middle. He's on the wing and certainly generating a lot of that drive. Yeah, it's awesome to have Trav. Is an experienced player, and you can't buy experience these days. And it's awesome to have him in our team and playing in a wing role where he can get up the ground and get back, and he sees the game so well and communicates. So it's good for our young team just to have him, and he's playing some really good footy too. So I'm sure he'll go on for a few more years too. So he's an awesome player to have at our club.
If he's still there at 40, Dan.
Is he not 40 already?
Dan, it's Neil Cross here. We talk about the performance of guys like Travis Boak and Wines and people like that, but you've had, from what I see, 5 of the past 6 games now, you've had 25 plus possessions. Are you aware of that, firstly, and how much confidence are you playing with at the moment?
I don't check my stats at all. I feel like I've been getting the ball, the last few weeks a little bit and being able to use it really well. And I feel like for me, if I'm working hard and outnumbering at contests, it gives me a really good look. And I'm feeling good. I'm moving well, and I feel like I'm using the ball well. You don't feel it out there in the game. You're sort of playing, but it is good to have the ball in your hands for sure.
Satisfy my personal curiosity. So, has this period come about where you're mainly playing off half-back?
I think I've been playing off half-back for the majority of my time at Port Adelaide, but teams do play, especially us, we like to have a back that comes off stoppage and off centre bounce, and at times it can look like a mid, but it is sort of that back role that's a little bit more aggressive, and that's the role that I sort of fit into at the moment.
Dan, it's Kirsty Lamb here. I'm sure you guys will enjoy the win tonight, but at what stage do you guys flick over and you start to look to the games ahead? Obviously, it is a challenging run home. You're going to come up against some teams, particularly sitting in the top 8 at the moment, but at what stage do you flick over and start to look towards next week?
I think obviously we'll have tomorrow off and come to the club on Monday and review this game, and then being a 6-day break and playing on Friday night in Melbourne, I'm sure once it hits Tuesday, after our review, we'll be looking at Carlton, and we've come up against them before. We know what they're going to bring, and we had a loss last time, but I feel like in the past we've been able to turn from losses and get the teams a second time round, and we learn and we respond really well. So I'm sure the boys are looking for that challenge too.
Hey Dan, it's the 10th time this season that the team has kicked mentioned more behinds than goals. Is there an issue with goal kicking? Are you really focusing on it at practice? Has it been addressed by the coaching group?
Yeah, it's been addressed, and it's been we've got a kicking program that has been implemented this year, and the boys are trying to stick to their process and work out what's best for them, and that we're trying to break a few habits from players and work with them. It's not going to happen overnight, we know that, but if we can get the boys in front of the goals as much as possible, that helps. And I feel like the last few weeks we probably had a few shots from the boundary or from the junction, and we just need to maximise our opportunities and get them in the best spots possible, which we're working on as well.
Certainly tricky on a wet night in Adelaide as well. Just before we let you go, Dan, you had Joel Selwood at the club during the week, which is always a great insight when you've got a great of the game to provide some wisdom. But he mentioned in the media afterwards that he felt like the Port Adelaide group was at a stage where it didn't quite know each other's game yet. Is there still some chemistry to be worked on with the new additions to this lineup?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we still need to work out how each other play, how they respond to feedback, what gets them going. So, but we're working together. We're working on our connection from week to week, and it's similar to our goal kicking. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be perfect straight away. We need to keep building those connections with players and working out how to talk to them and how they move and how they play. And yeah, it's not going to happen overnight, but we need to keep working on that and getting better. And hopefully it takes us a fair way into September this year.
Hopefully it's all ready to go for Friday night against the Blues. Thank you so much for your time, Dan, and congratulations on a big win.
Thank you. Cheers.
Great to have Dan Houston from the Port Adelaide Footy Club, winners by 41 points over Richmond, 16-20, 116 to 11-9, 75. So raising the bat once again, but as I mentioned, more behinds than goals. It could have easily been more.
Well, on that too, Kirsty, how often do you practice goal kicking as a group?
Not necessarily as a group. Like if you're in the forward line, you're definitely in your line time. Like you're doing a lot of goal kicking, and a lot of the time you're not necessarily even doing like set shots. It's like on the run or mids entering into forward 50. But I think like it's super important because like it can be the difference between getting into finals and not getting into finals, particularly with how tight the ladder is this year. I think the other thing that is important to practice is kicking under fatigue. Like as you get longer into the games, like you are buggered and practicing under fatigue. So like particularly at the moment for us, we'll do a set of conditioning and then everyone's got to have a set shot or a shot within 30 seconds. And so doing stuff like that where you're trying to put yourself under a lot of pressure, you've just come off a running block and you're cooked, but you've got to find a way to score and to get a goal versus a point because it can be crucial, particularly come finals time as well.
Well, I remember when I was coaching up at the Gold Coast, and one thing they did there was in the stadium at Metricon Stadium, they put the sound, trying to mimic a crowd noise through the PA, the speaker system, just to try to get the players used to, well, that's just the noise, although they didn't.
Wasn't a big
what did they
crowd?
play? So I know they did that as a bit of a tool to try to help the boys and the players kick under a little bit of pressure, which is a little bit different to just lining up and having a shot and goal without any external pressure.
Just need the bugle in you or something.
Or something, yeah, it's interesting. And I know it's obviously been well talked about that's one area of the game that hasn't improved significantly over the course of the history of the AFL. And look at the scoreboard tonight and 16 goals, 20. We're not talking about kicking 46, what is that, 36. We're not talking about 30 goals, 6. You're making a slight adjustment. So, if it's 20 goals, 16 or 21 goals, 15, it's probably not a bad result. So we're not talking wholesale changes. They just need to tinker a little bit. But, as we said, unfortunately, in the big games, those misses will hurt.
Big games are coming. So Carlton Friday night, Sydney the week after, Melbourne, Adelaide and Fremantle on their run home. So it is one of the toughest in terms of the finals contenders and will certainly make or break Port Adelaide's campaign. But right now, just outside the top 4 by 0.8%. Still a couple of big games to come tomorrow that could shape the 8. So Brisbane, Sydney, Freo, Melbourne and Carlton, North Melbourne. Port winners by 41 points. On the Richmond side of things, we've got Premiership Bulldog Kirsty Lamb and All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco in the box. And I mentioned it through the call that in the comparisons to previous or likely wooden spooners such as West Coast or North Melbourne over the years prior, it feels like there's a little bit more optimism around Richmond. They're still having similar results in terms of win-loss, but the margins aren't as egregious. They're certainly more competitive for longer periods, and the younger stars of this lineup, rather, are certainly putting their hand up to say they belong at senior footy level. Do you feel the same, Kirsty, that this Richmond side isn't as terrible as the Wooden Spooners we've seen prior?
Yeah, I definitely don't think they are. Not when you look at the performance of tonight. And the competitiveness is a real mindset. It doesn't take talent to be competitive, I don't think. It just takes the right mindset and the will to go from contest to contest. And I think if you've got that in your game, you can build the other stuff around it. But if you don't turn up to compete, you're really battling. And I think it showed, like, Toby Nankervis is such a crucial player for them. It sort of all fell to pieces a little bit when he got subbed off. But I think, they're super young. They showed a lot of fight tonight. There will definitely be some positives they can take out of it. And they've just got to find a way to play 4 quarters of football. And you see that in young sides, like you see it in your North Melbournes and your West Coast. They'll show up for a quarter and be really competitive and then struggle to maintain that, and particularly when you play against some sides that are more mature or have got some older age players. But I think Richmond supporters sitting at home will at least be happy with the performance that they saw, albeit walking away with not having 4 points next to your team name, but competitive is something that you can build off.
And I think even further to that, and you look at Richmond tonight, if they could bring that mentality and mindset that you're talking about, is that you add Lynch to that, you add Prestia to that. Yep. Who else is to come back in? Help me out. Taranto to come back in.
Maybe Dustin Martin. Maybe.
Yeah. So then all of a sudden, you inject those 4 players, and all of a sudden you actually start to...
It's a crazy injury list, so I'll run through it. So the first choice players, Judson Clark is probably the lesser known of this group, but he's still impactful. Josh Gibcus down back, they haven't really seen a lot of him. This first round pick is supposed to be a key defender. Dylan Grimes, a senior player, premiership player, isn't there. Mykelti Lafau was their superstar key forward across the campaign. He's gone. You said Tom Lynch, Dustin Martin, Marlon Pickett, Nick Vlostone tonight down back. So a lot of their key defensive pillars aren't there right now. Jack Graham in the middle, Tim Taranto, Morris Rioli, Jack Ross, Tyler Young. So there's a lot of players. All of those players make their way into this 22.
How often have they played with that core playing this year, do you think?
It's a good question. Well, Crossy's got the stat.
Well, not many times, because they've used 41 players across the season and only 2 have played every game.
Right.
So that's how much interchange of players they've been forced into.
Yeah, and the only reason I ask that question is when you go through those players, and a lot of premiership players in there, I sort of sit there and think, have they lost a bit of their mojo? In terms of a collective list, they've, a lot of those guys have played in multiple premierships, and I look at.
You might already ask that about Collingwood.
Yeah, well, that's
they
right.
are. Some of them are older though as well. So like Dylan Grimes, Tom Lynch, Dustin Martin, Nick Vloston to an extent as well. They're a year or 2 away from it all being over. So you are right in a sense that list turnover is coming, even though they are injured right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we talked about their scoring. It's interesting because, as you said, you can battle for 3 quarters, but eventually you get wiped like they did tonight. Well, they haven't scored 100 plus this season, which is, I think, indicative of maybe they're missing a quarter. And that's the way it sort of rocked up tonight. And at 3/4 time, 10 points the difference. Richmond had 74 points on the board, and they finished with, obviously, only kicked the 1 behind the final quarter.
On that forward combination then, so no Tom Lynch tonight, and even when he comes back, it's probably his last year if he does play at Richmond in 2025. But Mykelti Lafau has had a good year, kind of plucked out of nowhere as this rugby league prospect. But Jacob Kajitsky was a late draft pick trade that hasn't really fired, and tonight had the 1 goal. He's shown a little bit more in the past fortnight than the early stages of the campaign in his first season for Richmond. Samson Ryan was this project player at 206 that this tall hunk of a man, but isn't kind of muscly or big-bodied yet. Do you kind of see... If you go Kajitsky, Lafau and Ryan in 2025, if that's the 3 they have to run with, will that work?
Well, yeah. Look, and you talk about Ryan, who's, what is he, 200
Samson Ryan's 206.
206 centimetres, and he's only a young guy as well. He's not physically mature like he's going to be in 3 or 4 or 5 years' time. So when you talk about running with that, I think whatever they choose to run with, they've got to stick with it and let those guys develop into the players that they, I guess, potentially see that they're going to develop into.
Yeah, they're just not like the Damien Hardwick era where it takes 8 years and almost sacking Hardwick and then finally got it right. So I don't think Richmond fans want to be put through that, do they?
Well, it's an awkward timing for them as well, right? So Tasmania comes in 2028 and you kind of want to replenish your list before that. So West Coast will be looking at this, North Melbourne will be looking at this, the Crows to an extent as well, because they may find themselves towards the bottom four, as will St Kilda, that now is kind of the time if you want to get your star midfielders over the next kind of 4 years before it's too late. And then Tassie have a plethora of first-round picks, and it'll be harder to replenish. There are teams at the top right now who you think if you fall over in the next 3 years, it's a bad time to be bad.
Or do Richmond go out and, the Vlostons and the Lynches, and do they go out and target the clubs that are in that window
and say take them? And that's Tom Lynch to Collingwood, which unfortunately the Magpies fall over today, and they're probably not in the hunt anymore. But if they were and they'd said, we could go around again in 25, he'd probably be the guy.
100%,
right? Maybe Melbourne could use him. They're certainly around the mark. And that's where, the Liam Baker and the Dan Rioli discussions have begun. And they're adamant they're keeping Shea Bolton and purely, he's 25. So he's going to be there, hopefully, as part of your next September run. But Baker's 26 turning 27 and Dan Rioli's 27 turning 28. So do you feel like if you can get, multiple firsts, it's time to pull the trigger, Kirsty?
Yeah, I think you probably have to. Your comments around Tassie coming in is a good one. A lot of teams, I think, at this stage of the year, probably regardless of where you are on the ladder, you're considering what does the future of your footy club look like, and how strong you are and how competitive you're going to be, not just sort of 2024, but long term. They've definitely got some decisions to make, Richmond. Do you really throw the magnets around and bring in a whole new group of players and see what it can do over the next few years, or do you fight like buggery to keep your best players and build something around them?
Yeah, it'll be an interesting journey, this, because, you are, as a list manager, you are looking 3 to 4 seasons ahead as you plot what you're doing, but it's a whole different project that is coming up in this experiment with the Tasmania team. We'll see what happens.
Aaron, staunch Richmond supporter.
I was avoiding this all night.
Your list manager, hypothetically, at Richmond, or whatever you're behind the scenes, you can grab a second rounder for Dusty Martin.
Oh, he's going to go for
second round, you take that in a half.
Yeah, he's going to go for it because he's been super coach and he's just obsessed with super coach as well.
No, I was very much in the mindset that if the rumours were true and Dan Rioli was being offered up for 2 firsts, you'd send Dustin Martin as a thank you gift as part of that. I would send both of them for 2 firsts. And Liam Baker, if it is Fremantle, they hold 2 firsts right now and possibly a future first. And I was all for that.
Yeah, right.
This is a strong midfielders draft this year, and they need midfielders. So, as a Richmond fan, I was I love the Premiership Stars. This isn't a kick them out the door kind of thing. They've been very loyal servants, but they're not going to be there the next Premiership run, are they? No. So it's time to kind of give them an opportunity to play for clubs that can continue to compete as well.
It was a bit like Jordan Lewis that went to Melbourne.
Yeah,
I remember Clarko obviously offloaded him and got something for him, and it extended
Hodge to Brisbane.
Career. Yeah, Hodge to Brisbane extended his career. So it might actually be good for the individual to go up there as well, or go somewhere else as well to extend their career as well.
I don't know. What are they getting, though, out of this if you're the Gold Coast?
As in...
The Rioli one, I think, makes sense if they think they're playing September footy in the next few years, which they're hoping to do this year. Yeah. The Dustin Martin one, it's probably to please Damien Hardwick and maybe a veteran head, and also a little bit of that media buzz that they probably need. It wouldn't do a drastic change for them in a rugby league state, but it certainly would be a little bit like Buddy Franklin to the Swans. It'd just be draw a little bit more eyes.
But Dusty might go up there, the warm weather, take up surfing and love it. And you might get 2 or 3 years out of it, and he might actually wind back the clock and play some really good footy.
Like Lincoln McCarthy at Brisbane. He didn't know what to do, the poor, with really poor injury issues that he had at Geelong. All of a sudden he's got up in Brisbane and the hot weather did it.